Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the Luffy fanfics, back with the amazing fanfiction. This is the second part of What If Dark Luffy Became Revenge-Hungry Psycho. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Syrup Village, one of the few villages and towns that are in the Gecko Islands, is a normal and simple village with nothing really too unique about it. As far as people are concerned, it is a peaceful place that is great for vacations. Over recent months though, things started to get hectic around the village. For one, the arrival of the group of bounty hunters known as the Perditionists has made the daily lives of the villagers a little more interesting to say the least. However, little did the inhabitants know that the current week they are currently on has something in store for the rather timid village. This brings us now to the marine battleships which are currently headed towards the Gecko Islands with Vice Admiral Garp and Vice Admiral Tsuru leading the helm of it. So, may you explain to me why you think our grandson is the one responsible for the murder of Saint Jalmac? Tsuru asked, curious as to why Garp would pin the blame on their grandson. Well, first off, despite the Den camera being far away from the incident, the size of the person that the government ship is about roughly the same size as Luffy. Not to mention, the only person I know who is crazy enough to even think of doing something like that in the East Blue is, of course, our grandson. Yeah, you're right about Luffy being the only one to think of doing such a thing. The way you talk about Luffy, though, makes him seem like he's some sort of ruthless cold killer. I don't mean for it to sound that way, but I guess you're right. I did make him sound like that, didn't I? Garp concluded as the two vice admirals look towards the Gecko Islands and can now visibly see explosions coming from one of the smaller islands. At this point, Garp had decided that he had enough and jeopardized himself of the marine battleship, leaving Tsuru to shake her head in amusement. Impatient as always, Garp. Cunilla, Tsuru yelled out, and not a second had passed when a dark royal blue-haired woman wearing a periwinkle-colored suit with two dado katanas strapped to her left side had appeared behind Tsuru. Yes, ma'am, Cunilla spoke, prepared to do whatever order her teacher wanted her to do. My protege, follow after Garp as backup. He'll probably not need it, but better safe than sorry, Tsuru stated, to which Cunilla nodded and went after Garp. With Luffy and Arasful. Hey Luffy, Arasful suddenly stopped and spoke out with a hint of dread in his tone of voice. The two had been fighting for the past 45 minutes non-stop as Aras tried time and time again to avenge his slice of pumpkin pie that Luffy accidentally knocked out of his hands. At the moment though, both of their danger senses were going through the roof. Do you feel that? If you mean the feeling of imminent death and endless pain awaiting you, then yes, I do feel that. Luffy responded, wondering what could give him that feeling right now, and the only answer he could come up with was ... his grandfather Garp. LUFFFYYYY. PARRRAASSSVNNLL. Truce, Arasful asked. Truce, Luffy confirmed. And with that settled in their minds as they heard their names being yelled at, they ran out of there, not wanting to deal with their fellow relatives. With the rest, the 8 people were enjoying their picnic when they were given a sight for sore eyes. Wayne, Case, and Usopp fell to the ground laughing. The 3 women chuckled at the sight, with only Kaya and Neos looking at them, instantly knowing what could get the both of them to run as if their lives depended on it. Guys, vacation's over. We need to go, Luffy exclaimed in a panic fashion while Arasful was behind him nodding frantically in agreement. What? Why? Exclaimed Ace, Wayne, and Usopp, who were just getting to know each other and were rather fond of each other, with Ace's brash yet kind personality resonating with Usopp's joyful happy-go-lucky one and Wayne's very bubbly prankster personality. Marines are coming. That's the reason why, isn't? Robin asked, finally realizing why they would cut their vacation short, to which Luffy and Arasful nodded. Yes, they are, and for what reason I don't know, but it doesn't seem to be a good one, Arasful stated grimly as he looked towards the direction where they came from. For all we know, they might be coming for you, Nico. Robin's body stiffened while Luffy proceeded to glare at Arasful. What are you trying to say? Luffy asked, angered that the man in front of him would try to pin the blame on Robin for the Marines coming over here. Oh, so that's why your name was so familiar. To think that the 79 million berry bounty woman would be here in the East Blue of all places. Wayne spoke as if he had an epiphany as he and Neo stood up. How do you know who I am? Robin questioned, though she feared what the answer might be. Well, if you had maybe paid more attention to our names, perhaps you'd know. I mean, I know we're bounty hunters from the New World and everything, but can we at least get some recognition here? Wayne retorted while Luffy and Robin's eyes widened in shock. Of course, Luffy thought as he prepared himself in case he needed to fight the 3 men in front of him. No wonder these guys are so strong. However, there's something else about them that I need to make sure of. I have a couple of questions for you guys. Luffy spoke, gaining the attention of the Perditionists. State your questions then. Neo spoke. When did you 3 come here in the East Blue and why? Luffy questioned. We came here to do a job for the world government almost 6 months ago, Neo stated, wondering why he would want that information. What was that job about? Luffy pressed on, with the murderous feeling growing in his gut. The annihilation of a New World pirate crew that entered the East Blue, Neo said, confirming Luffy's suspicions. But despite the growing urge to kill the 3 men in front of him, he decided to ask one last question. What was the name of the pirate crew you guys killed? Luffy asked, making some warnings go off in the bounty hunters' heads. May I ask why you are asking these questions? Neo's wondered as Luffy had a strange smile plastered on his face. I'm just curious, that's all. Luffy merely stated, using all of his will not to kill them until he can truly confirm that it was them they killed. Now who were they? The young money pirates, Arasful stated before being shoved out of the way along with Neo's by Wayne, who got consumed by a transparent beam that was sent by Luffy himself. Wayne, both bounty hunters yelled out in shock as they couldn't sense their doctor, navigator anymore. It was as if he was blasted into nothingness, with the only thing showing that he was there in the first place as a dismembered hand. They weren't the only ones that reacted, as Makino and Ace just gaped in shock to what Luffy had just done, while Rouge and Robin widened their eyes. Usopp couldn't comprehend what he saw, while Kaya took it really bad. Wayne SEI. She screamed out in horror, seeing her teacher being blasted into nothingness. Robin, take the others to the other side of this island right now. I'll meet up with you all later. But first, there's something I have to take care of. Luffy yelled out as she used her flower fruit powers to grab and launch Ace towards her mother's arms, and they ran off. Usopp, Kaya, get out of here and head home. This isn't something for the both of you to see. No matter what you hear, don't turn back. Arasful also yelled out at the same time, making the 2 crying children run over to Kaya's mansion. Once they were in the clear, Arasful and Neos glared at Luffy while he did the same. You know, Arasful muttered darkly as he pulled out his sword from its scabbard, and Neos picked up his guandao. You really are like your grandfather, Luffy. Happy, easy to get along, and kind, yet irrational and impulsive. Not to mention, it seems it wasn't the gum fruit you've eaten at all, as I highly doubt that that devil fruit has the ability to do what you just did moments ago. You seemed like a great person, and I would have loved it if you had joined my crew. Even if you had asked me to, I would have rejected the offer. Luffy interjected, not bothering on fixing Arasful's mistake about his devil fruit powers, while Arasful let out a hollow chuckle. Yeah, I figured as much. It's such a shame though that because of your impulsiveness and irrationality, you're going to die right here, right now. As Arasful finished, Neo swiftly lifted up his left hand, making Luffy go stiff. What? Why see can't I move? Luffy gritted out as he tried to force himself to move, failing in trying to do so. Before he can try to struggle again, Neos clenched his hand, making Luffy explode into a pile of blood and gore, filling the area around them with a terrible stench. Well, it seems he's hiding more than what we had expected, Captain. Neos commented as he and Arasful watched Luffy reform back by turning his blood and remains of his body into a ball of bluish dust that then changed into a form that looked more human, before solidifying itself back into Luffy's original form. If you guys really want to kill me, you're going to have to try harder, Luffy said before seeing Arasful and Neos looking towards his direction in surprise. Before they both gave off a smirk. Luffy was confused to why they were smirking before he felt one of most terrifying, if not the most terrifying aura he's ever felt. Oh, don't worry, we weren't trying. This is just the beginning. A distorted voice spoke out from behind Luffy as the rubber man instantly covered his entire body with armament haki and turned around just in time to see a reddish-black gas-covered Wayne hit him with the side of his warning sign axe, launching Luffy towards a big hill, decimating said hill in the process. What the hell? Luffy thought in shock at seeing the man he knew he disintegrated being there as if he wasn't hit in the first place. I'm sure he died when I hit him. I couldn't sense him anymore when I did. What did he do? I'm sure you're wondering right now, Luffy, how I am still alive despite being disintegrated down to the subatomic level. So I'll give you one hint before we end you. You can't kill something that exists in all of us. Wayne spoke out, grinning mirthfully as he let his axe get covered by his trademark reddish-black gas, before dispersing the gas, showing that his weapon is gone. And just when Luffy thought Wayne was done using his devil fruit power, he noted that his once silver eyes were now crimson red, with the sclere turning into a pitch-black color. He then saw that the same colored gas surrounding him infused itself into his right arm, showing that Wayne appeared to be unscathed by Luffy's deatomizing attack while making his arm increase its size threefold while also gaining the same reddish-black color. Wayne immediately grabbed Luffy with his enlarged hand and threw him towards Neos at Mach speed while Neos used his guandao and tried to slice through Luffy by infusing his weapon with haki. Thankfully though, Luffy's haki is much stronger than Neo's, successfully blocking the attack with his right forearm, taking no damage whatsoever while launching the black-haired man away from him. Luffy then took the opportunity to take out the pistol he was given as a gift from Frankie to shoot at Neos. The sea stone bullets hadn't even made their destination halfway when Arasful stood in front of the bullets and sliced them to Kingdom Come with caliber. Damn it, can this get any worse? Luffy thought angrily as he was facing a man who appears to have one of the best regenerative powers he has seen to date that also boosts his strength, speed, and size, along with a man whose devil fruit power has the capability to keep Luffy from moving a single millimeter. Not to mention, their captain is fast and strong enough to get between the sea stone bullets' trajectory towards Neo's as well as slicing them to a near dust-like composition. As if responding to Luffy's question, 2 pure white wings sprouted out of Arasful's back as well as his clothes being changed to a white hooded robe, and a golden rope appeared to be tied around his waist along with his arms being wrapped around by light beige colored bandages that appeared to have poneglyphic writing on it. To make matters even worse for Luffy, Arasful's blade started to glow a soft golden light, emanating massive amounts of power. Hybrid form, Arasful yelled out as he disappeared from Luffy's sight. Luffy's eyes widened as his danger senses skyrocketed and activated his armament Haki armor to its maximum effect. Very soon after, he felt like he was being punched millions of times at that exact moment while being engulfed by a white flash of light, making him close his eyes to protect them from being blinded. Damn, those punches hurts, Luffy exclaimed as he kept getting hit. Even if he isn't using Haki to power them up, they still hurt. Will he just hurry up and stop punching me already? Little did Luffy know that the flash of light wouldn't be going away anytime soon. From other people's perspective, it looked like Luffy was engulfed by an orb made of pure white light. Follow my lead, you two, Arasful exclaimed to both Wayne and Neo's as he leapt out of the ball made of light, going between his crewmates before he shot a continuous beam of light towards the light ball. Following his example, Wayne and Neo's each raised one of their arms and a ball began to form on the palm of their hands. A reddish-black liquid ball the size of a basketball swirled around Wayne's palm, convulsing erratically. A massive ball of water with a diameter size of a football field grew in Neo's palm before being compressed into the size of a tennis ball. At a single moment, time seemed to slow down, and it is at this very moment that both Wayne and Neo's fired their own beams. The beams hit the ball of light, which then turned into an abnormal, erratic ball made of light, water, and whatever Wayne shot at it. After firing for a good couple of seconds, Wayne decided to one-up his fellow captain and shipwright. Is that it? He taunted his crewmates as the beam being fired from his palm expanded in size, increasing the output whatever Wayne is firing. Say what you will, Neo stated uncaringly as he also increased the size and output of the amount of water being shot at the unstable ball. Let's do this, you two, Arasful exclaimed as he is the last one to increase the output of light as beam fire. RRRRIAAUUUGGGHHH. The 3 bounty hunters yelled out as they gave the final push to their attacks. The increase of all 3 beams caused the ball to convulse violently as it expanded from all of the attacks it absorbed before finally exploding in a form equivalent to that of a high-grade explosive blowing up in midair. With their eyes, they can see the smoldering body of Monkey D. Luffy falling down lifelessly. Despite this, they never caught Luffy himself smirking at their attempt to kill him. Suddenly, to the perditionist's surprise, Luffy's body disappeared. Neo's observation Haki screamed at him to move out of the way. Unfortunately for him, Luffy's Rankyaku is faster than Neo's can react, causing Neo's body to be sliced in half diagonally. As soon as the sharp compressed air blade known as Rankyaku passed through Neo's, he transformed himself into a blob of water before reforming himself back to his normal state. As Luffy launched himself backwards in order to gain some distance from the 3 bounty hunters, Arasful's about to launch a sword strike towards Luffy when suddenly his and Luffy's danger senses along with the doctor and shipwrights told the 4 that someone or something dangerous is coming towards them at an alarming rate. LUUUUFFFYYYY. The 4 men froze in their positions. Is that Truce still in effect, Aras? Luffy asked emotionlessly. Why, yeah, Arasful muttered in acknowledgement, making Wayne and Neo's hesitantly stop attacking Luffy. Not a second too soon, Garp suddenly appeared throwing a Haki-infused fist at Luffy, who countered by throwing out his own Haki-infused punch, each fist hitting the other. Meanwhile, Tsuru's protege Gunilla took out her 2 Dado katanas trying to slice Arasful, who retaliated by blocking her blades with his own sword. LUFFY. Why did you kill the world noble? Do you know how much you made me worry? Garp yelled out in anger, making the perditionists look at Luffy in surprise. He killed one of those abominations. The 3 unknowingly thought at the same time, boosting their opinion of Luffy just a bit. And to think your grandson would actually be fighting my little Aras and his ragtag group of bounty hunters. How cute. Gunilla chuckled out while Arasful gave the older woman a glare. Shut up, mother, Arasful muttered out, now making Luffy, Wayne, and Neo's look at him in surprise. Wait, you mean the hot woman in front of us is your mother? Wayne exclaimed, piecing together how the 2 of them resemble each other. Sai, let me introduce to you Vice Admiral Tsuru's protege, Rear Admiral Gaston D. Gunilla, also known as my mother, Arasful introduced in an uncaring, yet irritated tone as he pinched the bridge of his nose. Awa, sweetie, no need for the cold shoulder. Anyways, Garp, Looks like we had interrupted a scuffle between our descendants. From looks of it, it appears my son would have won. Gunilla commented, making Garp huff in defiance. HMPH, you know my grandson would win. I mean, your son had to face him with his other 2 crew members after all. Garp retorted, taking pride that his grandson was holding his own against some of the most dangerous people in the New World aside the Yonko themselves. Gramps ... what do you want? Luffy yelled out in frustration, trying to make his grandfather and the woman beside him focus back to what they were originally going to do. Oh Luffy, you ate a devil fruit, didn't you? You've changed a lot this past year. No longer the small 7-year-old boy, but a grown strong man, I see. Garp stated proudly, now realizing his grandson looked completely different, while ignoring a pissed Luffy's statement. At this point, Luffy face faulted, wondering how his Gramps can be oblivious to the most obvious changes before realizing he had the same problem in his first life. You just realized that? At what point did you see a small 7-year-old me, Gramps? Luffy exclaimed while everyone around him looked at Luffy in confusion. Wait, what do you mean he's changed a lot? And what do you two mean that Luffy's supposed to be 8 years old? He looks like he's in his mid-20s, exclaimed Wayne, wondering what had caused Luffy to turn from a little kid to an adult. Yeah, what did your grandson do to become the hunk that he is? Gunilla purred out, leering over Luffy's well-toned body. Mother ... are you really hitting on someone who's technically 8? Arasful asked, appalled by his mother's actions towards the man-child in front of them. Well, my life is mine and your life is yours. We could do whatever we want with it, even immoral things, she called out nonchalantly. You're damn right we can. Wayne enthusiastically agreed. Of course you'd agree with the perverted woman, Neo stated, making Wayne glare at him. Would you care to repeat that? Wayne questioned dangerously. You must be getting deaf from old age if... Enough, we're getting off topic here. Garp frustratedly bellowed out, making the 2 bickering men shut up for the meantime. Getting back on topic here. Luffy, why? Oh why did you think it was such a good idea to go on and kill a world noble? Huh, Garp bellowed out in anger, making Luffy angry as well in the process. It was because of that damn noble that Ace and Sabo got hurt, okay? Luffy retaliated, making Garp shut up in surprise at the reason why Luffy had killed the world noble. Because of him, they had hired pirates and tried to burn the Grey Terminal so that the Goa Kingdom can boast about how clean their kingdom is. They were willing to hire pirates to kill innocents for something stupid like their public image. If you were in my shoes, what would you do, Gramps? Garp had remained silent. In all honesty, even he wasn't sure what he would do if he were in Luffy's predicament. He then realized that despite what position of power anyone has, if they ever messed with Garp's family, he'd end their existence the moment they were in his sight. To be honest here, Luffy, I'd probably do the same, Garp admitted. There is one more thing I have to know though. It's about the criminal, devil child Nico Robin. At this, Luffy's face contorted to a hardened glare. What do you want with her, Gramps? Luffy asked, ready to defend his nakama. She's dangerous, Luffy. She was able to destroy 6 marine battleships at the age of 8. She has to be brought to justice. Garp tried to reason, only to receive a haki-infused punch in the face from Luffy. Luffy was livid. To think that his Gramps would actually believe what the world government had told him about how dangerous Nico Robin supposedly was, when in reality she's just a young woman who wants nothing more than to know the true history of the world. You know nothing, Gramps. Don't you dare try to do anything to Robin. She's my nakama and I'll do whatever I have to do to make sure she is protected, Luffy exclaimed in anger. With Robin and the rest, unknowingly to Luffy, Garp, and the rest of those currently there, Robin overheard their conversation as she used her devil fruit ability to check on Luffy to make sure he's alive and well. They had been rubbing for roughly 10 minutes when they reached their destination, and Robin decided to use her devil fruit powers. Thank you so much, Luffy, Robin thought as she cracked out a small smile while letting arms down to her sides. Robin, what's going on with Luffy? Ace asked, worried that something might have happened to his younger brother. Don't be afraid, Ace. He's okay, Robin assured the young boy. Robin, Makino, Rouge, and Ace are currently waiting on the piece of land that they came on when both Ace and Robin suddenly went alert. The Marines, Robin began. They're coming, Ace finished for her as the both of them prepared to defend themselves. Not a moment too soon, a platoon of Marines came out of the trees aiming their rifles toward the four. Before anyone could do anything, a voice rang out. Men, stand down. The Marines hesitantly did as they were told as Vice Admiral Tsuru walked forward, where she was greeted by a joyful Rouge and a much brighter Ace. Tsuru-san, it's been so long. How are you? She greeted the old Vice Admiral woman. Hoba-san, why haven't you visited? You should have seen what happened so far this year, Ace exclaimed as Tsuru crouched down and gave a warm smile while she patted Ace's head. Yes, it's been too long since I have visited any of you. Hell, I don't even think Luffy remembers me, Tsuru stated as the once tense atmosphere became the opposite. The Marines seemed much more relaxed, seeing as their commandant knew the woman and child. Makino and even Robin seemed to calm down and be more at ease. Now, as much as I hate to say this, even more so to do it, I would have to ask the four of you to follow me, including Unico Robin. Tsuru explained as she took a good look at the four people in front of her. Rouge and Ace looked all right with it along with Makino, though she was a bit hesitant. Robin, on the other hand, subconsciously took a step back and seemed very nervous. Do not fret, child. I'll assure you that Garp will take no excessive action towards you, especially since my grandson seems smitten by you. Tsuru lightly teased at Robin, who gained a slight blush before nodding. As they headed back, they began to hear chatter and laughter, much to everyone's confusion. They were greeted to the sight of Luffy, Arasful, Wayne, Neos, Gunilla, and Garp sitting down together in a circle as Kaya wrapped herself around Wayne crying in joy while Usopp sat beside Neos sniffing slightly. Okay, what did we miss? And how is he back? Makino asked as she wasn't expecting the then serious situation to become more of a reunion between family and friends. Not to mention the returning of the orange-haired doctor, Navigator, whom she swore she saw get obliterated by Luffy's attack. Oh, we just had some disagreements, but nothing that a good old-fashioned chat and fight can fix. And as to why I'm still here alive and kickin', that's a secret for only me and my crew, Wayne explained as he petted a sniffing Kaya's head. Yes, well, even so, we're going to have to make this vacation a short one. I'm sorry for trying to kill you guys, and thank you for giving them a proper burial, Luffy stated as he gave his trademark grin. Arasful couldn't help but smile as well. Well, let's let bygones be bygones. We hope my little comment doesn't deter any of you from being acquainted with us. Arasful apologized, knowing this all started with him unintentionally accusing Robin for being the reason why the Marines came. Oh, don't worry about it. Even though you, Wayne, and Neos are bounty hunters, I'd still like it if we became allies, Luffy suggested, to which the three bounty hunters nodded in agreement. Luffy, Garp spoke, gaining Luffy's attention. Are you sure you will be able to get me a competent Marine to replace you within 10 years? Garp asked. Yes, I do, Gramps. Believe me, the one I choose will be more than enough, and I promise you he'll be an admiral a few years in the Marines. Luffy promised, making Garp sigh in content. Now, Luffy, while I do have a problem with you and Rouge sheltering a criminal, Garp said as he looked at Robin, who shifted around uncomfortably at Garp's narrowing gaze. But if I try to stop you from keeping her safe, that'd make a hypocrite now, wouldn't it? Garp said as he pinched the bridge of his nose in frustration. Wait, you mean? Luffy began happily before being interrupted by his grandfather. Yes, now go before I change my mind, Garp exclaimed in a mixture of anger and frustration. At hearing this, Luffy immediately stretched his arms to wrap around Ace, Rouge, Makino, and Robin before using Zoro to hightail it out of the area. Now that I think about it, it seems like Luffy did eat 2 devil fruits, Wayne mused to himself, making those around him raise an eyebrow in confusion. Wait, shouldn't it be impossible for 2 devil fruits to coexist within a single vessel? Gunilla asked, knowing from what she has read about devil fruits is that one cannot have 2 devil fruit powers. That is true for the most part. However, in all of my years in living, I have seen cases, albeit pretty rare even for one of my lifespan, where someone has eaten more than 1 devil fruit and survived the event, Wayne explained, shocking those around him. Out of nowhere, Vice Admiral Tsuru went up to Garp and smacked him on the top of his head rather hard. Oh, what was that for? Garp asked, completely confused as to why Tsuru would hit him while he rubbed a large bump that appeared on the top of his head. That's for making our grandson leave without him saying hello to me. Honestly, Garp, I haven't seen him in so long, and you send him away before he had a chance to notice I'm here, Tsuru shouted out as she continued to smack Garp on the head, much to the amusement of those around him. While this was going on, Arasful took Usopp and Kaya's hands and took them to a much more secluded place. So, Arasful began as he looked at the 2 children with a serious expression. What are your thoughts on Luffy's offer? He asked them both as they gave him a look of uncertainty. Seeing the fear in their eyes, Arasful gave a calming smile. If you 2 want to know my thoughts on this, I could care less whether you accept it or not. Whatever it is that you want to do, be it pirate or marine, me and my crewmates will support your decision, Arasful assured the children, who gave him a smile of appreciation for his truthfulness. The 2 looked at each other before nodding and looking back at Arasful. Well, much later with Luffy. Luffy contemplated the series of events that corresponded over today as he laid down on his bed. He never thought that the bounty hunters themselves would bury the entire Young Money pirate crew and give them a proper resting place, even if Neos had stated that they did it because they had enough money and were too lazy at that point to just turn them into the Marine. And even then, he didn't think he would win his argument with his grandfather Garp in ensuring that Robin won't do anything bad, as well as promising him a good Marine in exchange. He chuckled as he thought of a certain pink-haired Marine who at this moment is still a kid with a dream to become an admiral. Still, even after all of this, one unanswered question remained in his head. Who are the Perditionists? And why hasn't he met them during his first life? Good. You've finally asked the question I was waiting you to ask. An all too familiar voice stated, making Luffy sit up in surprise. He was then greeted to the sight of the very same old messenger man who told him about his second chance in life. "Oh hey, you're Ba," Luffy halfway exclaimed before suddenly knocking out. "Go to sleep. We'll talk somewhere where no prying ears can hear," the old man stated as he looked towards the corner of the room where he saw an ear and an eye. Even though Robin seemed to be looking straight at him, she couldn't really see him at all, as the old man only makes himself visible to those he wants. Perks of being an angel. Even more so since he's God's messenger. In Luffy's mindscape, Luffy suddenly found himself back in Ms. Adams' laboratory, more specifically the corridor. At the end of the corridor, there's an open door, which caught Luffy's attention for obvious reasons. He started walking towards the open door, and when he entered, he was greeted to the sight of Ms. Adam, the Gum Gum Devil, and God's messenger all sitting at a table waiting for Luffy to come and join them, albeit the Gum Gum Devil looked like he was going to blow a fuse. "Hello Luffy, please," the messenger began before being interrupted by the Gum Gum Devil. "Hurry up and sit down already," the Gum Gum Devil shouted impatiently, much to the annoyance of Ms. Adam and the amusement of the messenger. Luffy did as he was told and sat down facing forward at the messenger. "Right, so as you've probably already noticed, Luffy, the world you're in right now is essentially the past, but at the same time, it isn't the one you're originally from," the messenger explained as Luffy nodded. "As I've told you before, there are going to be many things that happen differently compared to your original past. For instance, I'm sure you know that Arlong and his crew weren't supposed to go to the Konomi Islands a year ago, but rather the year after this one." "Yes, I already knew that. What are you getting at?" Luffy questioned, wondering what the old man is trying to say. "Sigh. Have you ever heard of the multiverse theory, Luffy?" he asked, genuinely interested in Luffy's answer, while Ms. Adam had realized what the old man meant, making her eyes widen in surprise. "Well, I have seen that term once in one of the books that Robin had lent me in training my new devil fruit power." "What about it? Are you saying that you took me into the past of a different universe?" exclaimed Luffy in amazement. "You're getting on the right track. Now I know you want to know what had happened with the Perditionists as well as the young money pirates in your original universe. So I'll start there," the messenger began as he got comfortable on the chair he is currently sitting on. Luffy suddenly leaned forward in anticipation to what he's going to learn about the bounty hunters as well as the friendly pirate crew that got killed by said bounty hunters. Even the Gum Gum Devil and Ms. Adam seemed very interested in this topic, albeit Ms. Adam didn't lean in as much as the two males in the group. Let's start with the oldest guy in the bounty hunting group, Gracilson Wayne. 6 years before you began your journey, there was a meeting between Kaido and Big Mom. During the meeting, he barged in and challenged both of their crews in a battle, claiming they won't be able to kill him. They did ... sort of. Luffy was baffled at this revelation. Well, that explained why he wasn't there in his own timeline. This did bring up a question though. Why did he go and challenge both Big Mom and Kaido? Even he should have known that he was going to die should he attack both pirate crews at the same time. Luffy explained as from what he saw in Wayne even in the short time they've gotten to know each other is that he most definitely has a screw or two loose in his head. That's the thing though, Luffy. He wanted to die, the messenger explained, causing Luffy to cock his head in confusion. From what he saw with Wayne is that he seemed to be like any other person, wanting to live and keep on living. Seeing Luffy's confusion, he tried to further explain it. "Let me explain his situation to you, Luffy. How would you feel if one day you accidentally eat a devil fruit that essentially makes you the very essence, the embodiment, the very thing that no one wants to be, and in exchange, you'll never die through any normal means?" Because of said fruit, he had to see all of his loved ones and their descendants die while he continued to live on. He was afraid of making new bonds with people as he didn't want to keep feeling loss. It had gotten to the point that he had tried every single way of killing himself that he would have thought would do the trick. Old age. He lived to be over 4 centuries while trying to kill himself a number of times throughout. Seastone bullet. Once removed, he'll be as good as new after seemingly dying. Drowning. He tried that, and 30 years later his body washed up in the coast of an island seemingly unharmed. Seastone blade to the heart. Same with the seastone bullet. Jumping into an active volcano. He did, and a century later, said volcano erupted, launching him out in the process. Injecting himself with impossible amounts of poison. The moment the poison entered his body, it was killed off by his immune system. After explaining Wayne's situation, Luffy couldn't help but feel pity for the orange-haired man. Even Luffy didn't think he could have gone through what Wayne had gone through. The messenger continued on the topic of Wayne. So, as a last-ditch effort, he went to the New World, by himself might I add, in search of someone who might actually be capable of killing him. Thus he went on and did the most insane thing he had ever done. And it succeeded. Sort of. Wait a moment. You keep saying sort of. What do you mean by that? Ms. Adam, who had been silent throughout the conversation, chimed in, wondering what the old messenger meant by sort of. Well, when he was fighting off both Charlotte Linlin and Kaido himself, something strange happened. It had never happened before in all the times I've gone through different universes of this world. He became the devil fruit. My guess is as good as yours, as I don't really know what he did to become the very devil he had eaten, but when he fought, he suddenly became a devil fruit. For some reason, Kaido grabbed the fruit and chucked it towards the ocean, never to see the light of day again. Since then, the devil fruit has been in a cavern in the deepest part of the New World Ocean. The messenger finished while all those around him remained silent. So I guess that's the end of his story, is it not? Ms. Adams stated while she looked up at the ceiling above her. So what about the other two? What happened to them? The messenger just smiled sadly as he remembered what had happened to them. Well, with Gaston D. Arasful, he died at childbirth, along with his mother Gunilla, who died due to complications. Actually, this is one of the very few universes out there that has him alive and well. In most of them, the world government's project on creating the ultimate force the Marines will have to offer had failed spectacularly. All children born from this project, known as CPX or Heaven's Wrath, were genetically altered and enhanced by both Dr. Vegapunk and Caesar Clown to maximize their capabilities. But because of this, they had unknowingly increased the chances of them dying to the point of survival being near non-existent. Therefore, the reason why you hadn't heard about him in your own timeline is because he never existed in the first place, the messenger told them sadly. With Grasmic Neos, he died 15 years before you started your journey as a result of a civil war which happened in his home island in the New World. He was a commander in his country's military that led his platoon through the most dangerous missions given to him. At some point, though, a very destructive secret came out and the government needed a scapegoat to blame the incident on, namely Neos and his platoon. One day, his platoon was given the task to hold off the rebels from crossing a very important bridge which could have changed the tides of the war. They weren't, however, given the information on how big the group of rebels was going to be. So when the rebels came, they were initially underprepared for them as their numbers were in the hundreds of thousands. But Neos, prioritizing his comrades' lives over his own, ordered his platoon to retreat and to bring back up while he held them off, using the power of the water fruit to help him. After 2 days of constant fighting and defending, the rebels had lost over 70% of their forces in that area, causing them to retreat while Neos stood there on the bridge tired and wondering what happened to his platoon and why there wasn't any backup. He went back to his base to give his report, but was greeted to the sight of his dead platoon members stacked in a pile as his superiors looked down on him. They then did the stupid thing and started monologuing about what happened and why they did what they did. Needless to say, it caused something in him to snap, causing his devil fruit power to awaken and consequently using his power to implode his enemies and those who wronged him and his platoon. Little did he know, though, that one of his former superiors had requested help from the world government, causing them to send in an admiral along with 3 battleships. Needless to say, that's where things went downhill for him, the messenger stated as he took in a deep breath as he slouched in his chair. The Gum Devil took a lot of interest and was exasperated that the old messenger had stopped. Seeing his reaction, the messenger couldn't help but chuckle at his reaction. Well, when the Marines came, they were greeted to the sight of the entire island being covered with blood, guts, and disfigured bodies. The further they went into the island, the more blood and gore appeared, with some areas literally being big ponds filled with nothing but water. However, what scared them was when they finally reached a spot that had no blood on it whatsoever, which turned out to be the graves of Neo's platoon. Then Neos seemingly appeared out of nowhere. Then one thing led to another, and soon enough, the destruction caused by Neos and the Admiral literally wiped the island off the face of this planet, along with the civilians, remnants of the rebels, government, and themselves as well. The messenger concluded while Luffy looked at him in amazement. This old guy has a lot of information about these guys. Luffy thought as he now knew why he hadn't met any of the Perditionists when he sailed throughout the Grand Line. He suddenly became curious about the Admiral who was capable of taking down Neos. I have a question, Luffy said, getting the attention of the old angel in front of him. What is it? The angel asked. Who was the Admiral that killed Neos? Luffy questioned. His name was Hisoka, also known as the 5th Admiral Akainu. He was known throughout the Marines for his strong belief in absolute justice as well as his destructiveness with his devil fruit, the flame fruit. The angel responded while Luffy looked at him in surprise. So he was the one who had the flame fruit before Ace, and those other names they have. Luffy began. Yes, those are preset titles given to those who become an admiral. Sometimes new ones have to be created to suit the admiral, but for the most part, there are other people who had used that title before. For example, Sengoku was known as the 3rd Admiral Kizaru in his time before becoming known as the Fleet Admiral and the Buddha. The angel explained as Luffy nodded in understanding. Going back to Neos, his fight with Admiral Hisoka caused the both of them to kill each other. After that, no one had been able to find their bodies along with the water fruit, but Ace had found and eaten the flame fruit a good 12 years later. Okay, now what happened that caused him to be alive right now? Ms. Adam asked, wondering what had happened in this universe for Neos to have survived. Wayne and Arasful, was the angel's answer. What did they do here that caused the change? The Gum Devil wondered, not knowing how they were the ones that kept Neos alive. Everything. For you see, since Arasful survived his birth as well as his mother, along with the other children that were part of the CPX program, he left Punk Hazard, which was the base of the project, at the age of 11. Half a year later, being by himself, he had a chance encounter with Wayne trying to end his own life, and befriended him. Another 6 months pass. They caught sight of the battle going on between Neos and Hisoka. Once they dealt the final blow to each other, Wayne and Arasful went on to save Neo's life, and thus the Perditionists were created. The angel summarized, finally giving the big picture to Luffy and his devil fruits. That's really amazing. Well, what about the young money pirates? What happened to them? Luffy asked, wanting to know why he hadn't heard about or met the young money pirates. Well, the old angel began. They kinda pissed of both Garp and Borsellino, so they sent out the equivalent of 3 buster calls at the same time and annihilated them while gaining the gold fruit as a spoil, which is why they have obtained so much money and resources. Before the person who ate the gold fruit got murdered by Virgo, so Doflamingo can obtain the devil fruit, before it was once again stolen by Guild Tesoro. So all in all, they were already dead at this point of the timeline as well. The angel told Luffy sheepishly, as Luffy looked a little sad, that they were already dead by this point of time, even in his original universe. So, if this universe is so different to my first one, then why did you bring me to this one instead of my own one? Luffy asked, wondering why this old man's leader would ever send him to a similar yet different place. That's for me to know and for you to find out. Also, I have to get back to heaven. I have to continue doing my job before I get in trouble, the man in the throne up there. So that's all I have for you, Luffy. Have a good night. The angel said as he got up and walked out the door, before the room flashed white, blinding Luffy. In the morning, Luffy groaned as the sun hit his eyes as he woke up. Remembering what he was told about the origins of some of the new people he has met, he wonders if they'll do any significant change in his journey. Smelling the wondrous smell of cooking meat, he pushed that question out of his mind for now and went downstairs for breakfast. Current statuses of the characters. Gaston D. Arasful. Age, 18 years old. Height, 6'5". Hair color, dark royal blue. Eye color, gold. Devil fruit power. Affiliation, the Perditionists. Haki specialization, Conqueror's Haki. Gaston D. Gunilla. Age, 36 years old. Height, 5'11". Hair color, dark royal blue. Eye color, brown. Devil fruit power, none. Affiliation, the Marines. Haki specialization, none. Equally proficient with armament and observation. Grace Ilson Wayne. Age, 468 years old. Height, 6'0". Hair color, orange. Eye color, silver, distorted mix of black and red. Devil fruit power. Affiliation, the Perditionists. Haki specialization, armament Haki. Grasmic Neos. Age, 26 years old. Height, 6'3". Hair color, black. Eye color, black. Devil fruit power, water fruit. Affiliation, the Perditionists. Haki specialization, observation Haki. Monkey D. Luffy. Age, 8 years old. Height, 6'6". Hair color, black. Eye color, black. Devil fruit power, gum fruit and atom fruit. Affiliation, the Straw Hat Pirates. Haki specialization, Conqueror's Haki. Nico Robin. Age, 19. Height, 5'11". Hair color, black. Eye color, brown. Devil fruit power, flower fruit. Affiliation, the Straw Hat Pirates. Haki specialization, observation Haki. Now that's all I have for now. Wait, there's more. Sneak peek time. On the Going Merry. Luffy sighed in irritation as a couple of moments ago, Nami had collapsed after obtaining a very dangerous fever. Seriously, how the hell did the same exact insect bite her, even though she actually listened to him for once and dressed with a layer of clothing and give her the same disease no less? At times like these, he really felt like cursing the heavens, even if they did give him his second chance on life. Then suddenly Luffy's knees buckled and he almost fell onto the ground. Sigh, I hope I can at least stall my symptoms from showing to my crewmates. The last thing they need right now is me making more trouble and work for them, Luffy said to himself as he leaned on his favorite seat and rubbed the right side of his neck, which had a very noticeable purple swelling around the bitten area, which he kept hidden with a scarf he had brought from Fuchsia village. While he was doing this, Usopp was watching the crow's nest with Marguerite while Sanji trained Jin and Brook in the art of haki. Meanwhile, Nachiko, Vivi, and Kaya stood by Nami's side to make sure anything bad doesn't happen to her, with Kuina and Zoro walking around the perimeter of the Going Merry in case someone suspicious stowed away with them. Oh well, Luffy sighed out in relief as he took in the air around him, seeing the wonderful Drum Island coming from the horizon. At least nothing could make this any worse, Luffy thought before he heard one of the most horrifying laughters he has ever heard, be it this timeline or the one he's originally from. The albeit unnoticeable laughter was heard, taunting as if he was daring for anyone to come and face him. You know what? Fuck whatever compliment and positive outlook he had for this alternate universe. The man in the sky must have definitely planned for this to have happened. Shit is about to get real. 9 years before canon, Luffy knew that even with his guidance for Ace's and Robin's training, they could only get so strong in the East Blue. Sure, they mastered how to use their respective haki, but that doesn't change the fact that they need to face stronger and faster opponents in order to improve upon it. It had been a month since his conversation with his grandfather Garp and the group of bounty hunters known as the Perditionists, and during that time Luffy realized something. It was during that month that Luffy saw both Ace and Robin begin to stagnate in their training. Even when he focused more of their training towards the Rokushiki techniques, Ace had finally become adept with Tekai and Zoro while Robin still struggled on said techniques. They had already bested the beasts in the deep forest of Dawn Island and were currently doing their own thing, with Robin reading up on historical books while Ace went on hunting without a care in the world. Luffy was thinking on how to improve their strengths when he suddenly remembered his 2-year training with Rayleigh. This brought a smile on his face as if he suddenly solved all of his problems. "Hey guys," Luffy shouted, getting both Ace's and Robin's attention. "I'm thinking of increasing the amount of training you two will do in order to improve your haki," Luffy stated, making both Ace and Robin raise an eyebrow in confusion. "What do you mean by improving our haki? I thought we already mastered it," Ace asked, wondering how can they improve upon something that they had mastered. "When I said mastered all those years ago, I meant that you are now capable of activating either armament or observation haki at will even when heavily distracted," Luffy stated as he thought of the fight between Usopp and Sanji versus the fat goat-looking ball called Satori back in Skypiea. "So how are you going to improve our haki then, Luffy-san? Go to another island with people who are stronger than us who can also use haki?" Robin sarcastically asked while Luffy rubbed the back of his head in acknowledgement. "Actually, you are right. We are going to Amazon Lily, the female-only island. The place where all of those born there naturally have access to their haki," Luffy explained as Ace instantly became excited at the prospect of fighting people who are also capable of using haki. Robin also seemed intrigued by the prospect of going to a new place that she has never been before, probably interested in the history of the island, no doubt. "Oh no you don't," a voice suddenly called out from the house. Rouge soon came out as she waved a haki-infused cleaver at the three. "You three have gone to too many places. You are going to train with what you have. Nothing any of you can say can change my mind about that," Rouge exclaimed heatedly. Luffy just deadpanned at her before responding. "What if I take you to Sabayati Archipelago to see Rayleigh and Shaki, who you told us about last week, while the three of us go train?" he asked. The moment Luffy finished that sentence, Rouge had brought out with her 2 suitcases from seemingly nowhere. "Okay, when are we leaving?" she chirped excitedly. "A day later. I immediately regret this decision," Rogue stated solemnly as she held on to her dear life as Luffy used his Atom fruit powers to use the same piece of land they used to fly to the Gecko Islands to get them through the calm belt while weaving out of the way of the occasional Sea King trying to eat them. "Rouge, it's not that bad," Robin tried to reason, but was failing as she couldn't stop chuckling at Rouge's reaction towards the occasional Sea King launching itself towards them before being dodged at the last moment courtesy of Luffy. They had asked Luffy if he knew where he was going, to which he stated sagely that the voice will guide him. Not convinced by this, both Robin and Rouge had put it upon themselves to navigate Luffy through the calm belt in order to get Rouge to Sabayati before heading towards Amazon Lily. After dropping off Rouge to Sabayati, they went back on course to Amazon Lily, ignorant to the fact that they had caught the attention of a certain pirate empress who gazed at the group who were headed to her island like a predator. With Boa Hancock has had a bad voyage and is barely restraining her anger. For the first 3 months in their voyage, she and her crew were out searching for anyone who was unlucky enough to enter the calm belt and couldn't find anyone. Then, once they had finally caught sight of a ship, they failed in plundering it as it was actually a submarine belonging to a small group of 3 bounty hunters who were apparently training 2 children on what to do when confronted by Sea Kings. Needless to say, the Buggy Pirates got their asses handed to them in 20 seconds flat that day. On a side note, the 2 children were also taught how to deal with rowdy warrior women. After that embarrassing fiasco, they decided to head back, finding and raiding the occasional cargo ship for about another 3 months or so. Even so, this did not bring up the pirate empress mood. What made her snap, however, is seeing an unknown flying in her territory as well as heading towards her home island. "Whoever that is, they'll regret the day they crossed me," Hancock exclaimed in anger as she began to yell at her crew to follow that floating piece of earth. As soon as the ship got in a good position, Hancock kissed the tip of her index finger, making a massive pink heart suddenly grow out of said fingertip. "Slave arrow," she exclaimed as she let out a storm of pink heart-shaped arrows at the person she aimed at. She smirked, seeing her arrows get closer and closer to her target by the second, only for said arrows to be dodged with ease as the piece of earth weaved around the projectiles. She gritted her teeth in anger as she saw the intruder head into the forest of Amazon Lily. "Everyone, we have an intruder in our territory," Head back to Amazon Lily on the double, Hancock ordered, with her crew yelling back in acknowledgement. Back with Luffy. Luffy couldn't help but let out a chortle as he dodged every attempt that Boa Hancock had made on him and his passengers' lives. Once he was deep enough into the island's forest, he dropped off both Ace and Robin. Okay, I'll go confront the ship that was attacking us to see if we can stay here. While I'm doing that, I want you two to protect each other and to stay safe. I'll be back, Luffy stated as Ace and Robin nodded in agreement. Luffy then used his Atom fruit powers to make himself fly towards the last place he saw the Kyujin pirate ship, finding it almost immediately. He began to descend towards the deck, gazing upon his good old future comrade Boa Hancock. However, what he didn't expect when he set sights on the newly made warlord of the sea is that he began to feel his heart flutter a bit, along with his face heating up. He couldn't help but stare at the admittedly beautiful woman in front of him. It's like some of those times when he would gaze at Robin and just admire how she looked. Even if I keep telling myself not to become like Sanji, I still do, Luffy thought to himself as he began to concentrate on the matter at hand. You damn peasant, what is filth like you doing in my ship? Not to mention in my presence. Do you have a death wish? Hancock asked Luffy in a calm, yet deadly tone that promised endless misery. Luffy merely smiled. Hello, I'm Monkey D. Luffy. What I want is access to your island so I can train my brother and my friend so they can get stronger, Luffy stated, which only made Hancock's temper rise even further. Is that right? Well, let me tell you that you won't be seeing your brother or your friend anytime soon, Hancock angrily said as she brought her hands together to make a heart shape. Love beam. Hancock called out her attack as a beam of pink hearts went towards Luffy. Luffy just stood there letting the harmless attack pass right through him as he gave off a radiant smile, which only made to irk Hancock even more as she saw her attack fail in turning Luffy into stone. Hancock is absolutely confused. Her attack should have turned the horrendous man in front of her into stone. Was the man's fear greater than his impure thoughts on her, therefore keeping him from turning into stone? Yes, that has to be it, Hancock thought as she clapped her hands twice. Suddenly, her sisters Marigold and Sandersonia were at her side, ready to do whatever their eldest sister told them to do. My sisters, kill him, Hancock commanded as her sisters nodded in confirmation and transformed into their Zoan forms. Once they had completed their transformation, they launched themselves at Luffy, poising their lances to pierce his body. Luffy just stood in the same place until the last second, where he moved so fast that not even Hancock saw what had happened. A moment later, Hancock saw Luffy standing behind her sisters, and not a moment too soon, said sisters fell unconscious. What? All of the Kyuja pirate crew exclaimed in shock except Hancock, who just stared with widened eyes in silence. Impossible. There's no way that just happened, exclaimed one of the Kyujas. Who the hell is this man? Yelled another Kyuja. Hancock felt some of her anger into fear. She had never seen her sisters get beaten that fast, even when they faced those 3 bounty hunters a couple months ago. Then, suddenly, she felt an immense amount of pressure fall upon her ship. Not a gravitational pressure, but rather one that forces your soul to submit to a superior being. She fell on her left knee trying to not succumb to the man's conqueror's haki as she heard her crew fall down left and right immediately. She will not submit, she told herself, not to anyone. Ever since that day, she had promised herself that she will be strong for not only her sisters, but also for her fellow Kyujin members. She will not submit to anyone, not the world government, not Elder Nyan, not the world nobles, and especially not this man. She let out an angry, ferocious roar as she got up and rushed the straw hat-wearing man in front of her, trying to kick his head off. The man flashed a smile at her. When she saw that smile, she subconsciously hesitated as she saw nothing but warmth, joy, and happiness in that smile that he flashed her with. That hesitation made Hancock almost not notice that Luffy had dodged her attack and threw a punch of his own. Hancock barely had enough time to block the punch with her haki-infused leg. When the hit connected, Hancock winced in pain, wondering how this man's punch can hurt her when it wasn't even infused with haki. Ignoring the pain in her leg, Hancock kept launching attacks one after another while Luffy either dodged or blocked said attacks before retaliating with his own. Soon enough, however, she could no longer feel any anger towards the man in front of her, who is currently giving her an equal fight that she is very much enjoying at the moment. After about 10 minutes had passed, the Kyuja pirate crew started getting up one by one, almost immediately noticing the battle going on between Luffy and their captain Hancock. When they took a good look at their captain, they noticed that she was smiling. It wasn't one of those sadistic, malevolent smiles, but rather one filled with content and enjoyment. They then looked towards the man she is currently fighting and saw the same smile on his face. The two seemed to have begun enjoying their fight as they fought toe-to-toe against each other equally. Soon enough, however, Hancock began to get tired, which consequently caused her movement to be more sluggish. When Luffy threw out a kick, she wasn't fast enough to block it, causing for a direct hit on her gut. GRRK. Hancock coughed out as the hit launched her a good couple of meters away from Luffy. She struggled to get up as the hit knocked the wind out of her. She saw the man named Luffy walk up to her slowly, with a serious expression written on his face. Seeing this, she steeled her will, ready to defy whatever lecherous things this man wants to do to her and ready to sacrifice herself if needed to ensure he wouldn't harm anyone else. Even if she doesn't have a personal relationship with her crew, sans Marigold and Sandersonia, they are still her crew, and she would do anything to protect them from inevitable harm. To her surprise, however, Luffy merely crouched down and extended his hand towards her. She looked up and saw that he is smiling. That radiant smile of his. Hancock looked at his hand before taking it. It's surprisingly soft, she thought as she grasped his hand with her own. She looked at his face again as he lifted her up from the ground and felt a strange sensation go through her body along with the feeling of her face heating up. For some reason, she didn't have the same reaction towards him as she did with other men. So ... can me, my brother, and my crewmate stay on the island? Luffy asked, showing his trademark grin. Hancock just took a deep breath and sighed. How can she say no? This man in front of her had just beaten her with ease even when he was so plainly holding back on her. Not to mention, he knocked out not only her entire crew, but also her 2 sisters, who were her personal bodyguards. But even so, through his actions, she had seen that he held nothing negative against them. And even if she did say no, he seemed like a very stubborn person who wouldn't take no for an answer. Ugh, fine, you and your people can stay on our island to train. But be grateful, man, for you and the rest are the first to have ever been granted such access. Should you abuse it, I will find a way to kill you and your group in an excruciating manner. Hancock replied, much to Luffy's delight. Sister, exclaimed both Marigold and Sandersonia at the same time, completely shocked at Hancock's decision. Don't, Sandersonia. Marigold, this is my decision. I trust the both of you that you'll be okay with it, Hancock asked, to which her sisters hesitantly nodded in affirmation. Yes, I can't wait to show my brother Ace to you along with Robin, Luffy exclaimed happily as jumped in joy despite it looking weird with his 6'6" perfectly chiseled out body. Huges, it's time to head home, Hancock commanded, to which her crew yelled in confirmation. Later, once the ship landed on the island's docks, the fellow natives were shouting praise at the pirates as they brought in the supplies that they had plundered off whichever ship they could. Soon after, though, they were all left silent in confusion as they looked on at the male figure known as Luffy. But just as quick as they were silent, Luffy began using his devil fruit powers to entertain them, which soon gave him a massive audience. Before he can continue, though, he remembered about Ace and Robin and used his observation haki in order to find them before flying away, once again surprising his audience to what he is capable of, gaining some admirers in the process. Soon enough, he had found both Ace and Robin around a campfire along with a little blonde-haired girl in the outskirts of the city. They seemed to be getting along pretty well as they all seemed to be enjoying themselves. Then Ace and Robin noticed Luffy hovering over them, grinning. Luffy, took you long enough. Ace chastised his younger brother, who just rubbed the back of his head as he grinned sheepishly. It doesn't matter though, we made a new friend while we waited for him. Isn't that right, Marguerite? Robin politely asked the now named Marguerite. Yep, it's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Luffy. Your brother and friend have told me about you while they waited. It's also the first time seeing a man ever. I have so much to ask you, Marguerite stated as she went up to Luffy to shake his hand, to which he took. Luffy chuckled at her enthusiasm, happy that she still has the same curious nature as before. As much as I'd like to tell you about how guys are, I have to introduce Ace and Robin to Boa Hancock so she knows who they are, Luffy explained as Marguerite's eyes widened in surprise. Really? You met our Empress? You're so lucky, Marguerite exclaimed as she looked at Luffy with stars in her eyes. Well, why don't you come with us? I'm sure Luffy and the Empress won't mind, Robin assured the girl, who looked at her with uncertainty. Are you sure? Marguerite asked. Certainly, Robin confirmed. Okay then, Marguerite happily chirped out as he began to walk towards the city within Amazon Lily with Luffy and co. following her. After a good 10 minutes of walking, they were soon in front of the Kuja castle. Halt, who goes there? Asked one of the palace guards. My name is Luffy. This is my brother Ace, and my friends Robin and Marguerite. Hancock had asked us to go to her castle once I found them, Luffy explained to the 2 guards in front of her door. Oh, you're that man Hancock brought with her, aren't you? Well, why didn't you say so? She's been expecting you for a while, the other guard explained as she and the first guard opened the doors to the castle. Once they entered the palace, they were greeted by Initiative, one of the castle's attendants. Hello, we've been expecting you. Follow me, I'll take you to Empress Hancock, she stated calmly as she began walking further into the palace with the 4 trailing behind her. Soon enough, they were led into the throne of the castle where Hancock sat in with her sisters beside her. Welcome, Luffy. I see you have brought your family member and friends, she stated professionally as she set her gaze Luffy. You bet. The little girl is named Marguerite. My brother here is called Ace, and the woman beside me is Robin, Luffy introduced as he gave Robin a side hug. Hancock then set her sights on Marguerite, then Ace, before finally settling on Robin. For some reason, when she looked at Robin, she could help but let out a low growl for seeing her so close to Luffy. Thanks to her natural perception that became further enhanced by her observation hacking, Robin noticed this and couldn't help but let out a small smirk seeing the woman in front her look on at the scene with jealousy. Setting her unapparent jealousy aside, Hancock then spoke to the group in front of her. Okay, before anything, I need to set a rule for you three to follow. You will not cause any unnecessary trouble for any of the citizens in this island. Failure to complying to this one rule will result with me and the rest of the citizens of this island to force you out, whether you like it or not. Anything besides that is all right. You may use our Coliseum to fight against other Kyujo warriors as a way to improve your brothers' and your friends' strength. Hancock stated, putting a little emphasis on the friend part. Before she dismissed them, Elder Nyan barged into the throne. Princess, how could you? How could you let in some strangers into our island? It's preposterous. You're breaking the laws and traditions we've so held for generations. The old elder exclaimed before get kicked into the air by Hancock, interrupting her in the process. You four may leave now. Meanwhile, I will teach this old cur what it means to not only interrupt me, but to also question my decisions. There's a hidden manor in the northeast side of this island that the three of you can live in during your stay. Marguerite, I expect you to guide our new guests around should they ever need it, all right? Hancock commanded Marguerite, who nodded in joy. Good, now go, she then said as the four left the throne, ignoring the shouts and smacks going on behind them. Once they were outside the castle, Luffy just took a deep breath in before smiling in contempt. That went easier than expected, Luffy thought, as he genuinely thought it might take more than what he did in order to convince Hancock to let him, Ace, and Robin stay. So what now, Luffy? Ace asked as Luffy turned his head to look at his brother. Let's rest for now. Tomorrow, I'll decide on what you two are going to do, Luffy said as he looked at Robin, who had a compass out, looking at it to see where northeast is before leading the towards that general direction. OMAKE, the Perditionalists versus the Kyujo Pirates. 10 years before canon. On the Perditionist docked submarine, Gracieelson Wayne is currently telling both Usopp and Kaya one of his many adventures that he has had throughout his very long, fruitful, and eventful life. So there I was, fighting against this one hot-headed, pink-haired dude who had the ability to use flames from what he claims are for slaying dragons. Of course, due to my many years of fighting along my devil fruit power, I was easily beating him and those who tried to support him, Wayne told the two star-struck children who looked at him with awe. Before I can do anything else, however, the guy, I believe his name was Natsu I think, started giving off a speech about how the power of friendship or some bullshit like that will give him enough strength to defeat me. And I shit you not, his power increased tenfold after said speech, Wayne exclaimed, making the two children gasp in anticipation. So, what happened next? Usopp asked, really wanting to know how the Doctor, Navigator survived the encounter. I survived by utilizing the full power of my devil fruit, which gave me the obvious advantage over Natsu. Then before I could take my leave, my observation hacky suddenly warned me about him giving off another bullshit speech about friendship, so I did what I could to stop the horror from coming. I shut him up, permanently, Wayne finished sinisterly, making the children look at him with a little fright. Was this Natsu a bad guy? Kaya asked, hoping that her sensei wasn't the bad guy in this story. Well, I wouldn't say he was, but he annoyed the hell out of me. I was hired by a family to kill this group of criminals as they had kidnapped too many people. As I was right about finished turning said criminals' bodies into crimson red paste, Natsu and his group, which consisted of a guy with stripping problems, an armor-wearing red-headed girl, a fucking flying cat, and a really well-endowed blonde girl, entered the building to see their employers all dead. Despite not having any obligation anymore towards said group, the four came at me with all they had. I had just decided on just beating them to within an atometer their lives. But that pink-haired guy's persistence really pissed me off, so I decided to deal with it the good old-fashioned way. After that, I went back to get my payment, and I warped myself back to this time scene. The end. Wayne concluded his story as the children looked at him with a little fear visible in their eyes. What was the name of the group of criminals? Kalia asked. Their name was Blue Pegasus. From what I heard during my time there, they were originally a good, just group, but soon after almost all of their core members died during this thing called the Alvarez War. It became a shell of its former self, being led by the last surviving core member named Iki. This ugly motherfucker soon began getting some of the weaker-willed people in his group to kidnap women to either sell them for profit or for their own lecherous reason, Wayne explained, gaining an understanding nod from both children. Done with your story, Wayne Gigi. Lunch is ready, Arasful stated as he brought out two 30-inch pizzas. Before any of them can enjoy it, however, they heard cannon fire towards their left. They all turned their heads to see one of the new 7 warlords of the seas, Boa Hancock, and her crew getting closer towards them as they continued to shoot their cannons towards them. Okay, you two, here is your new lesson, how to deal with rowdy warrior women. Neos, leave some of your water clones to guard the submarine while we go teach our fellow students. Arasful commanded as Neos grunted in agreement as he created 5 clones of himself. After he was done with that, Neos and Arasful grabbed Usopp and Kaya respectively while the 3 core members of the crew went towards the Kyujin pirate ship their own way, with Neos riding a massive wave, Wayne using Jeppu, and Arasful summoning a set of white wings to fly. Seeing this, the Kyuja pirates all got out and prepared themselves to battle. The preparations though were deemed unnecessary as the 3 bounty hunters slaughtered the crew with incredible ease. They were knocking them out so fast that Hancock and her 2 bodyguards looked baffled by the scene. Once they were done with the grunts, Neos and Arasful put Kaya and Usopp down while they each fought their respective opponent. Arasful with Hancock, Wayne with Sandersonia, and Neos with Marigold. Despite it being a 1-on-a-knee, it didn't even last 5 seconds as they were attacking the sisters so fast that they couldn't keep up even with their hacking. Hancock looked at the 3-man group with anger, frustration, and defiance. Arasful merely chuckled as he crouched down and looked at Hancock dead in the eye. Next time, Arasful began as he let out a blast of Conqueror's haki. Be more careful with which opponents you pick. It may save your life one day. Arasful finished lecturing as he saw Hancock finally knock out. Well, now that that's done, let's now enjoy our fresh pizza before it gets too cold, Arasful mentioned as he sprouted his wings and took both Kaya and Usopp back to the submarine, with Wayne and Neos following soon after. 9 years before canon. Well, this is awkward, Luffy thought as he found himself getting the life hugged out of him by a crying and topless Hancock while everyone looked on at the scene in shock. Or in Robin's case, looking on emotionlessly, with the only thing giving off what she truly felt at that moment is the small vein bulging on her forehead. How did I get myself into this? Luffy pondered on as he thought of the recent events that had happened before this moment. Flashback. It's been about 4 months since they have stayed at Amazon Lily, and it has been one of the best decisions Luffy has ever made. In the beginning, Ace and Robin had to deal with loss after loss in Colosseum, seeing as they fought women who were much more experienced as well as stronger than either of the two, showing them that had a long way to go, even with Ace's use of the Rokushiki and Robin's flower fruit powers. By the second month, they had begun winning against the weaker half of the fighters in the Colosseum. Soon after, they began fighting those in the stronger half, taking some advice here and there from the Kyujin warriors. Even he has had his occasional fight in the Colosseum fighting the Kyujins, and once in a while either Robin and Ace to see how far they have gone. During this time, Luffy noticed something akin to a rivalry going on between Robin and Hancock. Once in a while, he'll notice them sending each other near non-existent glares, or each of them trying to get closer and spend more time with himself, for reasons he has yet to know of. For example, one time Hancock invited Luffy inside the palace by himself for dinner, which she made herself. Obviously, Luffy being Luffy, had accepted the invitation wholeheartedly and really enjoyed the food she cooked. If she wasn't already a captain along with him, not knowing about Sanji, he would have asked her to join his crew as the chef. During the 3rd month, she noticed a massive shortage of meat thanks to Luffy's stomach and loudly pondered on what to do. Luffy knew that Amazon Lily is surrounded by sea kings, so he left the island, coming back in an hour using his atom fruit powers to transport 6 massive sea kings into the island, restoring the Kyuja's supply of meat. Robin is another story. With Robin, she has asked Luffy if he could use his atom fruit powers to copy some of the manuscripts on Amazon Lily's history for her, which he did for her gladly, seeing as she never got to live long enough to see her dream come to fruition. Even after copying said manuscripts, she'd always ask him if he would like to read with her, to which he always says yes to, as he really enjoys reading with Robin, especially when Ace is not there to tease them about being so close to each other. Currently, after some fights in the Colosseum and it becoming sunset, Luffy and Ace were walking on top of the walls that surrounded the village in Amazon Lily as they were chatting about. So, when are you going to stop beating around the bush and tell Robin what you feel about her, Luffy? Ace asked, suddenly causing Luffy to look at Ace as if he grew an extra pair of eyes. What are you talking about, Ace? Luffy asked, knowing what he was asking, but played oblivious despite that. You know what I'm talking about. You love Robin, don't you? Ace teased as Luffy soon had a blush adorning his face. And no, I don't. Stop talking crazy. Luffy lied as he looked away from Ace as he waved his hand in front of his face. You know, Luffy, you suck at full-on lying. What you did now especially gave you away. Why don't you want to tell her what you feel? Ace questioned Luffy, who just looked up at the sky in contemplation. Because I'm new to this kind of stuff. I don't know what I'm supposed to do or say to her, Ace. Luffy explained as he looked at Ace dead in the eye. What if I gave you some advice? Ace offered, making Luffy suddenly laugh at that idea. Shishishishishi. You think you can give me advice when you yourself haven't even gotten a girlfriend? Oh, that's so funny. Shishi pafftha. Luffy bellowed out as he began to hug his sides. Ace's face reddened in anger and launched a haki-infused kick towards Luffy, who merely sidestepped out of the way. Luffy, however, forgot that they were on top of the walls and that his particular position is near the edge when Ace threw that kick, causing Ace to continue going and to fall off of the wall screaming his lungs off. Whoops, Luffy commented offhandedly as he began to walk the other way. I'm sure he'll be fine. Boom. What's going on? Why is it wet? Why are you naked? Where am I? You lecherous child. You have the gall to peek on me while I'm bathing. Luffy felt a chill go through him when he heard Hancock scream at Ace, and he immediately launched himself towards the hole that Ace made when he fell. When he entered the bathing room, he saw Hancock in her robes being guarded by her sisters while Ace looked at Hancock in confusion. That mark on your back, Ace said, causing the three women to stiffen up and look at him in shock. What is it? Luffy's eyes widened when he realized what had just happened. Shit, I completely forgot Hancock and her sisters used to be slaves. And now Ace saw what they never wanted anyone to know. Luffy berated himself as he grabbed Ace and put him under his shoulder. Hancock, calm down. Please don't do anything rash, Luffy stated as calmly as he could as he sensed via observation hacky the cluster of negative emotions coming from the Gorgon sisters. The strongest emotion he felt from them, though, made him subconsciously recoil in confusion and slight shame. They felt fear. They know that Luffy had held back on them and had beaten them with incredible ease, even when he never showed any animosity towards them. The sisters, especially Hancock, had small twinge of a feeling in them that the man in front of them is the same like the others, only hiding his true intentions from them. Luffy obviously knew why they were afraid, and it's pretty obvious when he thought about it. He slowly set Ace down as he raised his open palms in calming manner. Even this slight movement caused the three siblings to take a battle position, steeling themselves from what they thought would end in a fight. Well, whatever it is that he saw, I promise that he won't say anything about it, right, Ace? Luffy stated as he looked towards Ace, who nodded his head furiously to show that he will keep quiet. Hancock stared at the two to see if they are lying. Once she saw that they were indeed speaking the truth, her body visibly relaxed and she let out a long sigh. Get out. The both of you will meet me in my quarters in an hour. Keep quiet about it, Hancock ordered, surprising both Luffy and Ace that she handled this predicament really well. An hour later, both Luffy and Ace were patiently kneeling on the floor along with Robin, who came out of sheer curiosity. In front of them were Sandersonia and Marigold, who were standing on adjacent sides of the bed in between the two, waiting patiently. They were greeted to the sight of Hancock sitting on top of her snake salon, topless. Ace and Luffy soon had a blush on their faces, with Ace's being a Hinata-level blush while Luffy's is much less red but just as noticeable. Robin felt herself go through some emotion between rage and annoyance. While Hancock did not expect Robin to be there, she paid no mind to her as he put his attention towards the two males in front of her, mainly Luffy. Steeling herself, she asked, "What I'm about to show and tell you is for your ears only, and I will know if you talk about it to other people. Understand?" she coldly stated while the three nodded in acknowledgement. Her snake Salome picked up Hancock using his tail and turned her around slowly while Hancock picked her hair up and put it over her shoulder, giving the three guests in front of her full sight of what she and her sisters were ashamed of having, as well as never wanting anyone they don't trust to know of. The hoof of the flying dragon. This mark essentially yells out to those that see it that the person who has it on is or used to be a slave from the world noble. Hancock, obviously uncomfortable with showing her most well-kept secret to the man she felt strange feelings for, along with said man's younger brother and his female friend. The only one of the three that is confused is Ace, as he doesn't know about what the celestial dragons do to their slaves. Robin and Luffy, on the other hand, knew the meaning of the mark and what that meant to the pirate empress in front of them. Robin knew through the books she had read during her run from the world government, while Luffy knew from since his first life. Shakily, Hancock put her hair back into place while Salome turned her back around to face her guests, before putting her top on her shoulders to cover her back. Her eyes were shadowed over by her black hair, and her lip quivered as she tried to control her emotions. After a minute or two, she spoke. "Me and my sisters used to be slaves to those horrid celestial dragons. We were just young children when we were kidnapped and sold to those abominations. They branded us and forcefully fed us those cursed devil fruits for their own damned sick entertainment. We had no hope ... and I only wanted to die. No hope in seeing ourselves free again from them. Until 4 years later, when a fishman known as Fisher Tiger freed all of us when he attacked the world noble. From there on, we made it back here, but we couldn't truly go back. That was until Elder Nyan came to us and made up a story about how we defeated a Gorgon and we became cursed with eyes on our backs that would turn whoever sees it into stone, which was meant to dissuade my people from trying to see how our backs look like. So until an hour ago, no one knew of our secret, but not all secrets remain secrets whether we want them to be or not. So now you know why we were afraid when your brother saw what we never wanted anyone to know about," Hancock told them sadly as she looked down at the ground while her two sisters were weeping silently. Ace already had a burning hatred for the world nobles, but to hear even more about what they do and how they treat people really set something clear into his heart, to kill any and every world noble out there, regardless of the consequences. Robin knew how it felt to be hated by the world and to be considered the lowest of scum. So when she heard Hancock's life story, she couldn't help but feel a sort of bond be created between her and the woman at that moment. Luffy stayed silent. Even though he knew her story, it still pained him to hear it coming from her mouth. Suddenly Luffy stood up, gaining the attention to those around him. World nobles are the scum of this planet. There's no question about that. Me, Robin, and Ace don't care about whether or not you were a slave before. You are our friend, our nakama, and nothing will change that. Luffy told Hancock truthfully, who looked at him in surprise. Truly? You truly mean that? Me being a former slave doesn't disgust you in some way? She asked softly, showing hope for the first time since Luffy's met her in this timeline. Of course I mean it. Why would I be disgusted by something that is far from your control? So no, you being a former slave doesn't affect my opinion about you. I detest those damned celestial dragons as much as you do. In fact, that's how I met Robin, through killing a world noble. Luffy stated as Hancock and her sisters looked at him in shock. This man in front of them had killed a world noble. Was he the one the world government was looking for in the East Blue? Hancock needed to confirm it. Which sea are you originally from, Luffy? Hancock asked. The East Blue. Luffy answered. Hancock's eyes widened as Luffy's answer gave her the answer that she needed. Before she can say anything, Elder Nyan barged into the room. No wonder you were so familiar, Luffy, she stated as she had a rather withered out newspaper in her hand. Hancock. This man right here is responsible for one of the greatest spectacles that has happened since Fisher Tiger attacked Mariewa. To think that you would openly oppose the world nobles and live to tell about it. How and why did you do it? Nyan asked, curious as to how the man in front of them was able to get through a celestial dragon's security and kill him, not to mention escape from their clutches. Luffy just shrugged as he began to explain to the Kyujins the now dead Saint Jalmak attempted to kill his brother Sabo just because he raised a black flag and crossed his boat's path crossed with him. How Luffy waited until he and his were far enough so that they wouldn't bring in a buster call to kill him with his devil fruit powers, destroying his ship in the process. How he got captured by the Marines before eating a second devil fruit, rescuing Robin before escaping the Marines' clutches. Once he finished his story, he could see tears flowing down from Hancock's eyes. Hancock could not believe that such a good man existed. Sure, she has met Rayleigh, but he's Rayleigh, so that doesn't count. This man, different from almost every other man however, truly meant every single word he said. He never spoke a lie since he entered, which meant that he truly does care for her and doesn't care if she used to be a slave or not. He sees her for who she truly is, not who she used to be. She has never felt so relieved since ... ever. She has never felt this relieved before. Not when she and her sisters realized that they were free again, or when her home accepted her back and crowned her their empress. Ha. The pirate empress couldn't help but let out a laughter of joy as she saw the man in front of her in a new light. I like you, Luffy. You truly are an amazing man, she said as she smiled a kind, radiant smile. Luffy grinned while Ace did the same. Robin let out a small smile in seeing the pirate empress showing a new side of herself that she has never seen before. Hey Luffy, a feminine voice inside of Luffy's mind said, getting his attention. Adam, it's been a while, what do you want? Luffy asked inside of his mind. I have a way to remove those marks from your friend's body, and it's going to utilize that new technique you learned. But I'm going to have to control your body for a bit to minimize the amount of energy you use. Is that all right? You will still be able to control what you say, so I'm also going to ask you to tell Hancock what you and I are planning, all right? Ms. Adam asked. Okay, of course you can. I think it will help put Hancock's mind more at ease, Luffy stated happily as he began to feel his body move by itself walking towards Hancock. Hancock, do you trust me? Luffy asked the pirate empress, who looked at him, nodding a yes at him. I'm going to ask you to turn around and show me that mark again. I'm going to try something that hopefully will work, Luffy explained, causing Hancock and her sisters to look at each other a little hesitant to agree what he wants her to do. Even so, they know from what they know of him so far that he is a trustworthy man. So nonetheless she agreed and took off her top once more before being turned around by her snake Sallow. Ms. Adam took Luffy's right hand and placed it on top of the hoof of the flying dragon, and she began to concentrate. She planned on teaching this technique to Luffy when he had much more control with his Adam fruit powers. But her sympathy towards the pirate empress made her change her plans a bit. Hancock suddenly felt a weird sensation go throughout her body before she noticed blue ethereal ripples flowing around her body. This happened for a good 5 seconds before it ended. Atomic structure analysis complete, Luffy subconsciously said, catching the attention of those around him. Before any of them could say anything to Luffy's new technique, he spoke again. Atomic restoration, he exclaimed as Hancock was engulfed by a bright blue light. "Sister," Sandersonia and Marigold exclaimed in worry, wondering what is happening to their sister. Soon enough, they got their answer. Once the light receded, they were greeted to the sight of Boa Hancock, looking the same as always. At first, they couldn't see any notable difference about her. She looked the same as she always did. Until Luffy took his palm off of Hancock's back. "It's gone." They all mentally screamed in shock and amazement as they all saw Hancock's back with widened. The slave brand that used to be there is gone forever, and it shook them deeply. Once they all found their voices, they exclaimed in unison, "It's gone." Hancock felt a weird sensation go through her when her body began to glow brightly. She felt it mostly around the area where they had branded her. So when she heard those two words that she never thought she would hear in her life, she felt her heart tighten. "It's gone. It's truly gone. Impossible. How did he do it?" Hancock's mind went through question after question in her mind, trying to get around the fact that she now doesn't have the slave mark on her back anymore. "As someone bring in a mirror," she exclaimed as Sandersonia rushed to the other side of the room to get a large enough mirror for Hancock to see. Once the mirror was in place, Hancock turned her back towards the mirror to finally see Luffy's work. She felt her tears coming back again. She saw with her own eyes her unscarred back. There was no mark, nothing to show that she used to be a former slave from the Celestial Dragons. She felt nothing but pure joy at that moment. She no longer needed to hide her back anymore. That burden that she used to hold no longer existed. For the first time since her enslavement, she truly felt free. Freedom. She slowly turned her head towards Luffy, who had his trademark grin on, rubbing the back of his head sheepishly. "I hope you like it," a slightly tired Luffy asked awkwardly. Hancock couldn't hold her emotions in check anymore and launched herself at Luffy, hugging the life out of him in joy. She cried in joy that she no longer had that burden. Flashback end. "Oh yeah, so that's what happened," Luffy concluded as he felt Hancock's hug tighten. "Thank you, Hick. Thank you so much for this, Hick." "Luffy," Hancock said joyfully in between sobs. Luffy, finally brought out of his thoughts, returned the hug. Ace looked on at the scene, happy for Hancock, as she no longer had to deal with the reminder of her demons from the past. Up until that moment, Robin felt happiness for Hancock, until Hancock launched herself at Luffy to hug him. She then felt her usual poker face come back and a vein around her forehead area bulge in anger. She knew over the past year that she has gotten to know Luffy that despite his biological age, he is an adult both in mind and body. She has seen his strengths, weaknesses, flaws, etc., and she loves every single that makes him ... him. At first, she always denied that she felt something for the man-child. But after some time in Amazon Lily and a pep talk from Rouge, she began to consider the feelings she felt about him. Even so, this is the first time that she's felt something like this for anyone, so she had a difficult time to show her feelings towards Luffy. With Hancock, she finally began to settle down and she let go of Luffy once she realized she is in very close proximity towards him, along with the fact that she's topless at the moment. She quickly put her top back on before looking back at Luffy. Luffy," she asked softly. "Yes, Hancock," Luffy answered. "Could you please do what you did to me to my sisters as well? Please erase their slave marks," she pleaded as she gave a slight bow of respect. Luffy, surprised by the amount of humbling that Hancock had showed, was speechless for a good second or two. He never thought he would see the day that the most strong-willed woman he has ever met would bow, much less to him of all people. Quickly getting himself back together, he responded with a smile on his face. "Of course, just let me see the marks." Soon after, Luffy, who did not have Ms. Adams' guidance to do this time, put both of his palms on Sandersonia and Marigold's back, using atomic structure analysis to analyze their body structure before using atomic restoration to remove their slave marks from their backs. Once confirming that they don't have their slave marks anymore, the younger sisters cried in joy as they hugged each other. Luffy barely had the strength to stay up as the atomic restoration technique takes so much out of him. Being exhausted and somewhat disorientated, he didn't notice Hancock slowly walking up to him until she was right in front of him. Something wrong, Hank MMPH. Luffy didn't have time to react to Hancock suddenly grabbing his cardigan and smashing her lips onto his. Once his mind registered what had happened though, he felt his heartbeat raise up exponentially and his cheeks heat up considerably. Hancock did not know what went through her mind, but something inside of her told her to kiss the man in front of him. A small part of her told her not to do it, but in the end she gave in to her urges. When she felt her lips touch his, she felt like she had reached cloud 9. She had never experienced such a wonderful moment such as the one currently taking place. Robin just looked on emotionlessly as she felt a twinge of pain in her heart at seeing Luffy kissing someone who isn't her. She knew if she didn't make a move soon, he would be gone forever. Not wanting to see this anymore, she left, but her leaving caught Luffy's attention. Ace, on the other hand, is having a field day. He had gotten so many things on Luffy that he could tease about whenever he wanted to. He knew that this was a good moment to remember, so he discreetly took out his Den mushy camera and took a good amount of photos of the scene happening in front of him before putting the camera away in his pocket. Once Hancock finished the kiss, she looked at Luffy with bliss before rationality hit her like an elephant ramming through a wall made of wet toilet paper. Her face turned beet red before shrieking and pushing a surprised Luffy and a very amused Ace out of her room. Once she was sure that they left, she walked towards her bed and let herself fall on it, ignoring the shell-shocked looks her sisters were giving her and the passed-out elder Nyan on the floor. Mary, Sonya, please take Nyan out of here and let me rest in peace. I need to think, Hancock ordered exhaustedly as her still gaping sisters did as they were told, albeit in a manner that more resembled retarded-looking zombies than their usual guard duty. Once the three women were out, Hancock put her attention towards the ceiling, wondering if these past couple of minutes really happened or not. When she thought back to when she kissed Luffy, she felt her heartbeat accelerate and her cheeks heat up. What's happening to me? She asked herself as she began to doze off. With Luffy and Ace went to their manor, seeing as it has become night. During the walk, Ace kept teasing Luffy to what had transpired in the Empress room. Luffy tried his best to ignore his older brother, but found it really difficult when he brought up the parts where he felt the most confusion. Once they had entered the manor, they went their separate ways, with Ace going to take a bath while Luffy went in search for Robin, using his observation haki. He soon found her outside of the manor at the balcony facing the ocean. When he found her, he saw that she had a glass of wine in her left hand and looked a bit saddened. "Robin," Luffy said, making Robin know of his presence. Robin turned her head around, not surprised that Luffy found her. "Hello, Straw Hat-san. Need anything from me?" she asked professionally, making Luffy frown and narrow his gaze at her. "Robin, what's wrong? You're not acting like your usual self, and you're using that name you gave me when you first met me, which you never use now," Luffy stated as Robin's neutral-looking face gave a small frown and said nothing. "Sigh, Robin, you are someone very important to me, and you know I will do anything for my nakama," Luffy stated as walked towards Robin's right side. What he said perked Robin's attention. "Anything you say?" she asked slyly. "Yes, of course," Luffy reassured Robin, making her chuckle. "Then, close your eyes," Robin requested. Luffy cocked his head in confusion as to why Robin wants him to close his eyes, but nonetheless he did as he was told. "Okay, I closed my eyes. Now while I'm in PH." Luffy was caught by surprise once more when he felt a pull from his neck and a soft pair of lips tenderly kiss his own. He opened his eyes to the sight of Robin grabbing onto his neck as she planted a soft kiss on his lips. The feelings he felt when he got kissed by Hancock came back to hit Luffy like the sea train hitting a marine grunt. Luffy's face flushed beet red and his heart started beating so fast he genuinely thought he accidentally entered gear second. "A small gift to you, Luffy. And there's more where that came from," Robin whispered into his ear before she let go of him and entered the manor, leaving a star-struck Luffy gaping out in the open with one thought in his mind. What the hell is going on with Ace? Ace had been in the bath for a few minutes when he felt a tingling sensation go throughout his body. "Why do I get the feeling that I missed a golden opportunity?" he asked himself as he began to get out of the bath to dry himself. 8 years before canon. "So we both love Luffy," Robin stated as she looked at Hancock. "Indeed we do," Hancock replied calmly as she poured a glass of wine for herself and Robin. "And he's made it apparent that he loves the both of us as well, even if he is biologically younger than Ace," Robin continued as she looked at the glasses of wine that Hancock poured. "Correct, but he is very mature," Hancock confirmed as she took one of the glasses of wine and passed it to Robin. "And we both know he wouldn't choose between us for the fact that it would hurt the one he doesn't choose," Robin pressed on as she took the glass when Hancock passed it to her. "Indeed," Hancock agreed as she took a sip from her glass of wine. "And that leaves the both of us in quite the predicament," Robin concluded as she took a sip from her glass of wine. "Of course it does, but what can we do?" Hancock asked. Hancock and Robin over the past year or so have been discreetly fighting over Luffy as they both have fallen in love with him. It usually started with either one of them trying to get closer to Luffy, with the other one somehow succeeding in foiling the other's idea by changing Luffy's attention to something else. Soon, it escalated to them challenging each other in contests to see who can be the better one for Luffy. Soon enough, however, it became apparent that anything they tried was not working. Sure, they had a few successes here and there, giving Luffy a kiss or two and sometimes actually having a successful date, but that wasn't enough for them. Even with all their patience, they soon gave in to their urges and confronted Luffy about who did he love. To their surprise, he said that he loves both of them equally, and when they asked him who did he love more, he stated that he would never rank his loved ones in such a way and would rather lose his precious hat and not become Pirate King than do such a thing. He then said to the two women that he wouldn't go out with either one as he doesn't want the other one to be hurt and do something rash that they could regret soon after. This leads to now, where the two women are currently having a truce of sorts as to how to deal with their situation. This might work," Robin suddenly said, getting Hancock's attention. "You thought of a solution?" Hancock asked as she looked at Robin with hope. "It has crossed my mind a good couple of times since we came here, but I always pushed it to deepest part of my mind since I somewhat hated the idea," Robin said, not answering Hancock's question. Well, spit it out. What is it? A slightly irritated Hancock questioned, making Robin look at her dead in the eye. We share him, Robin said forcefully, trying to keep her voice as neutral as possible when she said it. ... was all Hancock could get out of her throat. Think about this, Hancock-san. He said that he would rather not date any of us if it will hurt his relationship with the other person, so why don't we both agree to share him? With his permission, of course. It'll be a win-win situation, Robin explained to wide-eyed Hancock. You and me both know that as of right now, we no longer have a chance to be with the man we both love if we keep going on this same route. I'm willing to try this idea if it means we get equal time to spend with Luffy. How about you? Are you okay with this idea? Robin asked as she crossed her arms. Well, to be quite honest, I'm actually okay with that idea. I'd rather be able to spend some time with him even if it means that you will than not at all, Hancock stated begrudgingly as she looked up at the ceiling. Did we just agree on something? Hancock asked, amazed by what had just happened between her and Robin. It appears we did, Robin mused as she chuckled at the irony of the current situation she is in. Now, Hancock began as she got up as Robin followed suit. To confront Luffy, Robin finished as the two women who viewed each other as rivals in some form now decided to set their differences aside to achieve their goal. They walked out the room they were in side by side, as equals to their goal. 7 years before canon, Usopp, Kaya, their respective parents, and their butler Mary were looking towards the docks sadly as the perditionist told them that they had to go now as they had taught the two kids what they need to survive whenever they go to the Grand Line. Do you three really have to leave? You have enough money to live a relaxing life here in this village, Banchina stated, making the three-man crack a smile. Unfortunately, as much as all of you have grown on us and that we've gotten used to this kind of peacefulness, we are more of the adventure type. Also, we have to take down those that have high bounties and are causing trouble to powerless civilians, Arasful stated as Neos gave a small nod and Wayne just grinned at them. You three have done so much for us. You all have even helped our butler Mary make the going merry with all that equipment you brought, Kaya's mother Charlotte tearfully said, making the 9 people there to look at the ship that mainly Neos and Mary built together. It essentially looks like the first going merry for the most part, especially with the figurehead being the same. However, the most notable difference with this ship compared to the original Going Merry is its size. This Going Merry is built with very strong, durable, and soundproof wood and is 3 times bigger than the original size of the first Going Merry, making it from a single-masted Caravel-class ship into a 3-masted Caravel-class ship. Instead of the steering pole at the helm, it gained a steering wheel for improved maneuverability. Another notable difference are the paddle wheels on each side of the ship in order to improve its speed and maneuverability as well as to keep the ship going when there is no wind to power the sails. Another difference is the amount of firepower that this new and improved Merry contains compared to the first one. Instead of having only 4 mediocre cannons, they were replaced with the 11 minigun cannons that the Perditionists salvaged from the annihilation of the Young Money Pirates. These minigun cannons originally fired 40mm rounds, but Neos modified them to fire 120mm rounds, which he and his crew had plenty of. He also modified them to have a targeting system that allows them to fire without the need of someone to man them. They were positioned with 4 on each side of the ship, 2 on each side of the quarterdeck, and 1 in the cannon deck, anchor room. Then there is the amount of rooms in ship compared to the original design for the Merry. On the bottom floor of the ship, instead of 1 woman's room and 1 men's room, there are now 12 rooms, each twice the size of the woman's room, lined up in 2 rows of 6 rooms. But the remaining space in that floor, Neos decided to make a reinforced training room for whenever anyone wants to train. On the second floor, towards the back, the amount of bathrooms were increased from 1 to 6. The 8 cannons are placed here as well along with most of its ammunition. In between where the cannons are, there is a water-fueled engine built by Neos in order to power the paddles. At the opposite side of the bathrooms is where the armory is placed, it with a crafting table and the walls adjacent to it being covered with weapon stands. On the top floor is where the cannon deck, anchor room is located at, as well as the meeting room and kitchen. The cannon deck, anchor room also contains a device that controls the cannons and can shut them on and off, make them manned or unmanned, etc. On the top of the cannon deck, anchor room is where the steering wheel is placed at in order to give the helmsman a better view as to where they are going. She truly is a beauty, isn't she? Mary stated happily, gaining nods from those around him. Indeed she is. Sigh, so this is it, huh? Kaya's father Edmund asked, to which the Perditionists nodded. It is. We thank you for the hospitality and for giving us the chance to train your children, Neos stated as he, Wayne, and Arasful gave a slight bow of respect towards the parents. Kaya and Usopp then ran up to them and gave each of them a hug. Thank you so much for teaching us, senseis, Kaya and Usopp exclaimed happily as tears flowed down their cheeks. Arasful kneeled down and softly grabbed the 2 children's shoulders. We are really proud with all the effort you two have put into your training. We know that the two of you will go really far in this world. Arasful complimented, making the two kids grin happily. Kaya, make sure you remember all I taught you, okay? Wayne asked, to which Kaya nodded happily. Good. Now I have one last gift for you, Wayne stated as reddish-black gas enveloped his left hand before dispersing to show a small, silver case. What is in this case are 3 syringes filled with an experimental drug that will permanently grant you 10 times your strength, speed, stamina, mental strength, and processing power with no bad after effects whatsoever. However, while the drug is taking effect, there is roughly a 30% chance that you'll well, let's just say that the side effect is quite maddening. Use it only in a life and death situation, and only use one. The other 2 are there in case one of your future crewmates are in grave peril. Wayne explained seriously as Kaya took note at the tone of his voice that this is one of the few times that he's serious about what he's saying. I understand, Wayne-sensei. I'll be careful about using this, Kaya said as she took the small case from Wayne's hand, making Wayne smile at her conviction. Neos then went up to Usopp and gave him stacks of what appeared to be instruction manuals. You should read these when you have the time, Usopp. These explain what all the things in the ship do in great detail and how to do the maintenance on them, Neo stated as Usopp took them and nodded to his teacher. Will do, Neo-sensei. I will use those skills you taught me on shipwriting and weapon building, Usopp proclaimed proudly as he puffed up his chest, making Neos crack out a small smile. May I remind you that what I taught you is only the basics to being a shipwright and a weapon master. It's all up to you if you want to keep improving on those skills of yours. On another note, even though this ship is strong and will definitely last you and your crew throughout paradise, it won't last long in the new world. So I recommend you get a newer, stronger ship once you and your crew are near the second half of the Grand Line, Neos advised Usopp, who rubbed his head as he grinned sheepishly. You too, keep training so you can improve yourself in both mind and body. You're going to definitely need it when you and your future crew decide to tackle the Grand Line, Arasful said as he stood up from crouching and began walking towards his submarine with Wayne and Neos following immediately. See you two in the Grand Line, the 3 bounty hunters exclaimed in unison. Soon after, they entered their submarine and they left. For about an hour, the Perditionists didn't speak as they began heading towards the Grand Line. AARRGGGHHH, Wayne suddenly yelled in frustration, breaking the silence before plopping on the floor like a pile of jello. I miss them already, Wayne muttered out, getting a sigh of irritation from Neos. For a moment there I thought that your devil fruit powers had finally caused you to snap. Well, what's done is done, Wayne. I miss them as well, but they won't be ready for the Grand Line if we coddle them too much. Besides, there aren't that many competent bounty hunters over there in the New World. We need to be an example that bounty hunters should strive to be. Neos chastised Wayne, who just sulked even further. Arasful in the meantime just laid on the floor with a look of seriousness evident on his face as he blankly stared up at the ceiling. When his fellow doctor and shipwright took note of his mood, they went up to him. Something wrong, Aras? You look like someone just went into your kitchen and took a piss everywhere, Wayne joked, making Neos roll his eyes. Arasful just stayed there staring blankly at the ceiling, not even reacting to Wayne's joke. You know, Arasful suddenly began, getting the attention of his crewmates. I always wanted a daughter, 6 years before canon. It's time for us to head back home. Thanks for everything, Luffy exclaimed happily as he waved goodbye to the residents of Amazon Lily. Beside him are Ace, Robin, and Marguerite, who were smiling back at the residents who were waving back at Luffy. In front of Luffy are Hancock, her 2 sisters, and Elder Nyan, who are warmly smiling at him. Please do be careful, Luffy. And please remember to call once every week, Hancock said to Luffy as she went up to him. Will do, Hancock. Will do, Luffy replied as he went up to Hancock and planted a chaste kiss upon her lips, to which she really enjoyed and kissed him back. Once the kiss finished, Hancock took out a piece of paper from her shirt and ripped a large piece from it and gave it to Luffy, who did the same thing when he took out his own piece of paper. Over the past 2 years or so, Hancock and Robin had begun dating Luffy after an eventful conversation between the 3. Every day, Luffy would rotate between them as to give them equal amounts of attention. During this time, both women had grown closer to each other to the point that they no longer have any sort of animosity towards each other. Rather, it became replaced with a rather friendly kinship between the 2. Here you go, Luffy, my Vivre card, Hancock said as she and Luffy exchanged pieces of paper. Thank you, Hancock, Luffy said as he gave her his trademark grin. Hancock and Luffy, sitting in a tree, Ace sang out before being interrupted by Luffy. If you don't stop right now, Ace, I'll tell everyone here what you usually do with a certain someone when you think we're not around, Robin stated, making Ace clamp up immediately and making Marguerite blush heavily at Robin's implications. Shut up, a blushing Ace exclaimed before turning away from Robin with a humph. Luffy merely shook his head at Ace's antics as he looked back at Hancock, who had a gentle smile spread across her face. Robin then went up to Hancock and gave her a handshake. Don't be a stranger, Hancock, Robin stated with a small smile gracing her lips. I could say the same thing to you, Hancock retorted, making a giggle come out of Robin. Soon after, Luffy had Robin, Ace, and Marguerite get near him as he used his atom fruit powers to levitate a piece of earth around them, leaving to Sabayati to get Rogue back from her vacation with Shaki and Rayleigh. 5 years before canon. Thank you so much for agreeing to this, Robin, Luffy said as he gave her his trademark grin. Robin could only shake her head in amusement. Well, after last night, how could I refuse? Robin inquired as she thought back to what she and Luffy did, smiling at the very vivid memory. She looked down at Ace, who just stared away from both her and Luffy with a look on his face that would only appear on war-hardened soldiers that just recently finished a decade-long war. Slightly confused at the look on his face, Robin asked him a question. What's wrong, Ace? You look like you just saw an eldritch abomination. Ace did not look back at her, but he did reply. You could say that, Ace stated emotionlessly as just kept staring at the horizon. Anyways, is there a reason why you want me to join and spy on this Baroque works? Robin asked, interested in why Luffy of all people would want her to join and spy on this organization when even she hasn't even heard of it. Well, Luffy began as he looked at her dead in the eye with utmost seriousness. I had a premonition. Something bad is going to happen with this organization being at the center of it. I want you to go into the organization and to slow down their progress as much as you can without attracting attention to yourself. Luffy half lied and explained as he dug into his pocket before taking out a piece of paper and his pistol. Here's my Vivre card with my Den Mushi's number on it along with my pistol. It will come in handy should you fight any devil fruit users, especially Lojas, Luffy explained as Robin took the Vivre card and the pistol. Earlier that morning, Robin had already given Luffy a piece of her own Vivre card, so there weren't any questions asked about it. Are you sure about giving me this pistol, Luffy? I know how much you care about it, Robin asked since she knew Luffy really took care of his gun. Don't worry, Robin, it's a copy. I have the original with me, Luffy explained as he took his own pistol out from its holster. Robin was about to ask how he made a copy before she remembered his unique abilities. Atom fruit, she asked, already knowing the answer. Yep, Luffy exclaimed happily as he grinned at her. Robin merely shook her head in amusement before walking up to Luffy and planting a soft kiss on his lips. Robin then looked at Rouge and gave her a tight hug. Be careful, Robin, Rouge said as she tightened her hold on Robin. I can't make any promises, but I will try to the best of my ability, Robin spoke back as she enjoyed the moment between her and Rouge. Once she finished, she went into the medium-sized boat at the docks and soon after left. Sigh, I hope she will be okay, Luffy said as he looked on as Robin's ship kept getting smaller and smaller as it kept moving away from Dawn Island. It's Robin. She has been on her own for 10 years, surviving all by herself before meeting you. I'm sure she'll be fine, Rouge stated as she watched her female friend finally go over the horizon. Once Luffy couldn't sense her anymore with his observation hacky, he turned his attention to Ace. Let's get you as strong as possible, Ace. That way, you may have a chance on giving me a challenge, Luffy said, making Ace smirk back at him. Oh, don't worry, I intend to, Ace stated as a matter of factly. 3 years before canon. After 2 years of constant hell-like training, Ace prepared the things he needed to start his journey. Over the course of his training, he had learned all of the Rokushiki techniques and is capable of using them with great proficiency. His haki also became even stronger with his daily spars against Luffy and Marguerite, to the point that he actually had a chance, however slight, to win against Luffy unless Luffy decided to add a little more effort when sparring. Currently, he just came back from the Daden house after saying his goodbyes to all of those there and is at the docks where everyone from Fusha village, Luffy, Marguerite, and Rouge were the first to say their goodbyes to the young 17-year-old son of the former pirate king Gall D. Roger. So this is it, huh, Luffy? Ace asked as he got into his dinghy. Yep. We did promise Sabo that we'd leave this place once we are 17, so we have to be good on keeping our promises, Luffy said, gaining a nod from those around him. Take care, Ace. Make sure to take a bath every day and to brush your teeth as well. Also, do not forget to be careful on who you recruit, Rouge advised, getting chuckles out of the civilians around the concerned mother. I will, mother, I will, Ace happily responded to his mother. Before anyone can say anything else, Marguerite jumped down onto Ace's dinghy from the cliff beside the docks and landed in front of him. Ace, Marguerite began as she stared at Ace emotionlessly, making Ace sweat a little in nervousness. And Marguerite, Ace wondered what she is going to do since she rarely has that expression unless something serious happens. What he didn't expect though is Marguerite pulling of a Hancock by grabbing his shirt and pulling him towards herself, crashing her lips with his. This caused everyone to go silent in surprise by Marguerite's daring move. About time, Rouge exclaimed happily, causing everyone to give a round of applause and a yell of joy for them. Ignoring them, Marguerite looked at a wide-eyed, blushing Ace intimately. Be careful out there, Ace. I know you're strong, but there are stronger people out there, Marguerite warned Ace, who got out of his shock and smiled at the blonde woman in front of him. Don't worry, I will, Ace said as Marguerite smiled at him before being brought back to shore by Luffy via gum fruit. Ace, before you go, I have one last piece of advice for you, Luffy told Ace with a serious tone in his voice. What is it? Ace asked, wondering what advice Luffy is going to give him that him go from jovial to completely serious. Beware the dark, burly, gay man with missing teeth who loves pies. Wha, that's it? Ace questioned, completely surprised by the advice Luffy gave him. What's his problem with those kind of people? Did someone matching that description do something to him in the past? Trust me, Ace. Should you ever see a bastard matching my description, be wary of him, Luffy warned, cursing Blackbeard's name in his mind. At the Moby Dick. For some reason, I get the feeling that someone is cursing my existence. Maybe it's red hair. I did after all give him that beautiful scar of his. Marshall D. Teach mused to himself as he laid down on his bed, thinking about his plan to become the king of the pirates. Back with Ace and the rest. Well then, I'd best be off. I'll see you two and Robin in 3 years, Luffy. Ace yelled as he began to row away from Dawn Island. Rouge cried in both joy and sadness at seeing her son follow his father's footsteps. Luffy, Makino, and Marguerite just kept smiling on as they saw Ace going further and further into the horizon, good memories flowing through their minds about their time with Ace. Makino remembers how she successfully taught Ace to be a kind gentleman while she somewhat succeeded with Luffy. She remembers teaching both Ace and Luffy how to read and write, with the help of her friend Robin. Marguerite remembers the first time she met the freckled boy. She remembers the times she would hunt with him for their food. She remembers their daily spars, which 65% of the time, he won. She remembers the time she felt her feelings for him grow throughout the years she has known him. Luffy remembers the first time he saw him in this timeline. He looked the same, except this time he had his mother with him to give him the love and support he so needed. He remembers the training he put him through with their brother Sabo. He remembers the spars he had with him throughout the years to improve his haki and his rokushiki techniques. Then ... he remembered the Whitebeard War, how his brother died in his arms, not being able to see his dream come to fruition, not being able to enjoy his life at its fullest as it was cut off abruptly by none other than the magma bastard Admiral Akinu. Ace, Luffy muttered under his breath with determination. I will make sure you won't have to go through the Whitebeard War again. I can assure you that, Luffy promised in his mind as he finally saw Ace disappear over the horizon. 2 years before canon, Kobe is having a bad day. He just wanted to go fishing when he entered the wrong boat, owned by 5 million Berry Bounty Alvida no less, and is essentially enslaved by them to be their cabin boy. He wanted to be a Marine for God's sake. How can he be a Marine when he is part of a pirate crew? Currently, he's being held in Alvida's quarters, being held by 2 of her grunts. So Brat, what made you come into our ship, huh? Were you thinking of plundering our plunder? The fat land whale exclaimed as she waved her iron mace around wildly, making the young boy piss his pants in fear. And no ma'am, I just wanted to go fishing, Kobe exclaimed in terror, not wanting his life to end so soon. Kobe's excuse baffled both the grunts and Alvida. You thought this was a fishing boat, they exclaimed angrily in unison, causing the poor boy's heart to skip a beat. Before they can say anything else, their ship started shaking violently and the 4 of them heard a loud crash. Grrr. You two, go and check out what's going on, Alvida ordered her 2 grunts, who nodded before running out of the room. Now then, Alvida began as she turned her attention back to the pink-haired boy in front of her. I guess you could have your uses, she said as she grabbed the boy by the back of his shirt and brought him outside of her quarters as they took in what they saw. Destruction, and utter chaos all around the ship as her entire crew laid there, either knocked unconscious or brutally ripped apart. In the middle of the area stood a tall man. He wore a red captain's coat over his black vest. He wore faded jeans and a pair of navy blue boots. The most defining thing on him, though, is the straw hat on his head. There seemed something about that hat that made the man in front of them even more menacing, especially when they took notice of the scar under his left eye. Who are you? What are you doing here? Alvida exclaimed in anger. My name is Monkey D. Luffy, future pirate king, and I am looking for him, Luffy stated as he pointed his finger towards a baffled Kobe. Well then, if you want him, come and take him, Alvida said as she charged at Luffy, aiming her mace at his head after dropping Kobe to the side. Before she'd run 6 steps, Gum pistol, she got launched away by Luffy's signature attack, hitting her with so much force that she reached terminal velocity in half a second, consequently launching her body towards the sky before disappearing with a twinkle. I've always wondered why some people twinkle when that happens. A mystery twinkle, Luffy murmured to himself, before focusing his attention to a scared shitless Kobe. What do you want with me? Kobe asked the man in front of him, wondering what he would want with him. When he looked up at the man, he no longer saw a serious face, but rather one that is grinning happily as if he is seeing an old friend after a long time. What is your dream? Luffy asked a stupefied Kobe. And my dream? Kobe asked, completely surprised by Luffy's question. Yes, your dream. Everybody has one. My dream is to become the next king of the pirates, so what's yours? Luffy questioned Kobe, who became more comfortable in his presence. My dream is to become a marine admiral. Why do you want to know my dream? Kobe asked once more. So I can help you achieve it. Luffy responded, shocking Kobe. Why do you want to help me? I'd be your enemy. Kobe exclaimed, wondering why the man in front of him would help him become a marine admiral despite he himself being a pirate. Well, because I made a promise with someone high up in the Marines to get them a competent marine in exchange to leave me alone, Luffy said sheepishly as he rubbed the back of his head, causing Kobe to sweat drop at his statement. So how are you going to help me achieve my dream? Kobe asked, wondering how the man in front of him is going to help him with his dream of being a marine admiral. Luffy smirked. Well, canon timeline. So it's finally time, Luffy thought as he looked at the villagers who were gathered up at the docks to see Luffy leave along with Marguerite and Kobe. Kobe had a big growth spurt during his training with Luffy, along with an increase of muscle mass, with his body being built more towards speed than strength. His appearance changed immensely, such as his hair now being incredibly shaggy instead of being its original, dull, flat shape. He is wearing a pair of black slacks, brown shoes, and a white turtleneck sweater with blue stripes going down his sleeves. He no longer has his glasses, as Luffy used his atomic restoration technique to fix any problems Kobe had with his body. Marguerite had grown her once short hair a bit longer, making it just past her shoulders. She wears a brown and black tank top under her white Kyujin cape along with 2 brown fingerless combat gloves. She also wears brown capris and a pair of brown boots. She also has her quiver attached to the back of her capris, with her green bow snake being wrapped around her waist. Luffy's appearance hasn't changed one bit. He still wears his red captain's coat over his black vest, his faded jeans, and his navy blue boots. His neck-length black hair still being shaggy under his trademark straw hat. His body hasn't aged one bit either, after the Adam Fruity forcibly aged his body to accommodate both of his devil fruit powers, thereby still making him look like he's 25 years old. He still retains the scar he got when he stabbed himself with a knife under his left eye, even though his devil fruit power can erase it for him. That boy is going to bring shame to this humble village with his antics, Mayor Whoopslap muttered to himself as he looked at Luffy with irritation. Oh, enough of that mayor. He's just chasing his dream, like Ace. Makino stated happily at seeing the boys she knew since they were little become fine young men. His dream, or his destiny? Mayor Whoopslap wondered aloud as he looked up at the sky, wondering if he just heard someone laughing down at him. Everyone, I will become the Pirate King. Just watch, Luffy happily exclaimed, gaining a hurrah from the villagers and a smile from both Marguerite and Kobe. Luffy looked towards the same horizon where both Robin and Ace left in order to do what they needed to do. Luffy thought back to his first timeline, seeing all the changes he has done in this world, whether for good or for bad. He doesn't really care for his old dream anymore. All that of him saying that he's going to become the next Pirate King is true, but that's no longer his dream since he has already achieved it. Rather, his new dream is to see his nakama live on and not die horrible deaths like in his last one. Everyone, I will make sure everyone turns out better for the all of us. I swear it, Luffy thought with conviction as the local Sea King came out to confront the 3 people in the small boat. Seeing the Sea King for the first time in this timeline brought out a grin on his face. Let it begin. Food. Onward, Luffy commanded the fearful Sea King as he sat on top of its head. Marguerite and Kobe stood beside him, one in awe at what Luffy did to command the Sea King, with the other looking at the scene with amusement. Using his observation haki, Luffy searched for his crewmates for a good amount of time as he made the Sea King wander around the East Blue. After about 3 hours, his observation haki caught onto his tangerine-loving, orange-haired navigator and her sister. Food, take us over at that direction, Luffy commanded once more as he stretched his right arm so the Sea King can see where to go. Once the Sea King began to swim over in that direction, Luffy directed his sights towards Kobe. How do you feel about getting one step closer to your dream, Kobe? Luffy asked the pink-haired teenager. Kobe grinned with excitement. I'm really excited, Luffy. With your training, I feel like I can take anything the East Blue throws at me. However, if what you say is true, then I'm going to have a lot of work to do to change how the Marines work, Kobe stated, finishing with a serious tone in his voice as he remembered what Luffy told him about how many of the Marines are corrupt, how the world government frames and erase a lot people, sometimes even entire islands, in order to keep their secrets secret, and also how the belief of absolute justice is a hypocrisy in itself. Kobe knew that as of right now, there is no way that he would be able to change anything in the Marines for the better. But soon he will rise up through the ranks, getting positions that grant him more and more authority. He knows that to do that, he has to put in the effort first in order to see the results. Luffy then turned his attention towards Marguerite. Marguerite, how do you feel about meeting our new crewmates? Luffy asked, flashing his infectious, trademark grin. Marguerite merely smiled back at Luffy. Ecstatic. I can't wait to find out more about this world and what it has to offer. That way, whenever we go to Amazon Lily again, I can tell my fellow Cujans about all the strange things I have seen so far. Marguerite explained happily as she, Kobe, and Luffy moved their heads to see a cruise ship. Well, at least this one thing hasn't changed, Luffy thought as he looked at Kobe, then at Marguerite, before using Jeppu with the other two following suit, leaving the Sea King by itself, which immediately left once it saw the opportunity. At the cruise ship, once Luffy, Marguerite, and Kobe used Jeppu, they suppressed their auras as best as they could before landing on a lonesome part of the ship. Once they got on, they entered the ballroom where lo and behold, Nami and Nichiko were. Walking up to the pair of sisters, Luffy introduced himself to them. "Hello you two, remember me?" Luffy happily asked as both women looked at him. Nami looked at the man in front of her. He looked intimidating at first, seeing as she couldn't see his entire face as it's covered by his straw hat. But when he smiled brightly, she felt her heart beat faster. Nichiko's eyes widened when she realized who the man in front of them is. "Luffy," she exclaimed in surprise as she took a step back to get a good look on the man that her sister has heavily crushed on ever since he saved their mother and their village from Arlong and his pirate crew. Nami's eyes widened when she saw the now named Luffy take his hat off, showing how he really looked like. He never thought she'd see the little boy she met turn into quite the well-built, handsome man in front of her. She felt her heart beat even faster and her face redden as she had some pleasant thoughts about Luffy, suddenly realizing what she is doing. Nami shook her head vigorously before giving Luffy a smile of her own. "It's good to see you again, Luffy. So you have finally begun your journey, huh?" Nami asked as she placed her hands over her hips. Luffy smiled. "Of course, it's been 10 years, hasn't it? It's time we make our mark on this world," Luffy said as he looked up at the ceiling. Nami only smiled at his statement before she realized the two other people standing behind him, as if they were awaiting his orders. Luffy, who are those two behind you?" Nami asked as the pink-haired teen and the blonde woman smiled at her. Luffy's smile increased in size. "Her name is Marguerite, and this is Kobe," Luffy stated happily as he gave the both of them a side hug. Once he let them go, Kobe and Marguerite went up to Nichiko and Nami respectively. "It's a pleasure to meet some of Luffy's crewmates," Kobe politely said as he put his hand out for a handshake. Nichiko saw the hand and put hers out as well. "Likewise, Kobe. Hope you're good enough to stay in the crew," she stated as the two of them shook hands. Kobe stifled a chuckle when he heard Nichiko say that, confusing Nichiko as she wondered what she said that made him do that. "That's the thing," Kobe began, getting Nichiko's and Nami's attention. "I'm not joining Luffy's crew. I'm going to become a Marine," Kobe explained, causing Nami and Nichiko's eyes to widen. "What?" the two sisters exclaimed in both surprise and shock, whilst gaining the attention of everyone else in the ballroom, including the security guards. "Attention! Stowaways in the ballroom. I repeat, stowaways in the ballroom," a siren exclaimed as the security guards instantly looked at Luffy's direction and charged at him. Luffy, not wanting to deal with this, unleashed his Conqueror's haki on everyone in the vicinity, including his crewmates and Kobe, but to a much lesser exposure. Both Kobe and Marguerite resisted it with some difficulty, but remained conscious nonetheless. Both Nichiko and Nami had never experienced such a thing before, and thus collapsed to one knee each as they breathed heavily after the amount of pressure they felt. For that quick moment, they felt as if they were in the presence of some kind of primordial being. Once they got back up, they looked around the area and saw that their group are the only ones still conscious. They then turned to Luffy, who merely looked at them beaming with pride. "You two managed to stay awake after using my Conqueror's haki, even if it was on a low setting. Good job." Luffy praised his navigator and her sister as he then began walking towards the exit. While walking towards the exit, he noticed that neither sister walked with him. He turned his attention to see the two looting the unconscious bodies of the rich. Luffy couldn't help but smile as he shook his head at the sight. Even with their mother still alive, Nami and apparently Nichiko have an affinity for money. "Do I even have to ask?" Luffy questioned as the two sisters stopped their activity to look at their captain with a blush tinting their cheeks. "It's to help fund our crew's activities. We're pirates and we need to have money in order to survive. Isn't that right, Nichiko?" Nami immediately said as she looked at her sister for support, who just nodded to Luffy furiously. Luffy looked at the two seriously, causing the two to flinch a bit at their captain's reaction to their favorite activity. "You know," Luffy drawled out as his straw hat shadowed over his eyes, causing the sisters to get scared a bit before they see Luffy raise his head up at them with his trademark grin gracing his lips. "If you need any money, just ask me," Luffy stated happily as he brought his right hand out in front of him, piquing both Nami's and Nichiko's interest. Soon enough, they were astounded to see that bluish dust revolve around his before solidifying into a miniature figure of Nami. When the dust suddenly dispersed, they saw something they never thought was possible until now. They were lo and behold, given sight of a miniature figure of Nami, made out of solid diamond. Luffy then walked up to Nami, placing the small statue into her hands. "You two don't need to worry about stealing from anyone anymore. If you ever need anything, just ask me." Luffy said as he motioned them again to follow him outside as he somehow got all the food in the ballroom into a sack. Nami just stayed put, looking on at the man she now knows she truly loves. Nezuko, on the other hand, snorted at her sister's reaction towards Luffy's action. Ever since that near-fatal encounter with Arlong and his crew, Nami has always been helping their mother Bellamere in any way she could, especially if it pertained to money itself. Every single time she and Nami left the islands, they would always come back with sacks full of money not only to help support themselves and Bellamere, but also to improve their skills and gain experience in using their haki and their respective weapons. So for Nami to suddenly have access to a man who is not only powerful, but can also make very expensive things out of the blue, she figured to tease Nami about this later, but now she needed to get her out of her daydream. "Hello, Earth to Nami," Nezuko questioned as she snapped her fingers in front of Nami, getting her attention. "Huh, what?" Nami asked, confused to what's going on as she saw her light blue-haired sister raise an eyebrow. "What fantasies were you having about Luffy?" Nezuko asked slyly, making Nami stutter and blush beet red. What are you talking about?" Nami exclaimed as she moved away from Nezuko and started walking towards Luffy's direction. "You were looking at him with deep longing, Nami. I know that look anywhere. Especially since you always had the same expression every time Luffy was brought up in a conversation," Nezuko explained, making Nami sulk in defeat. Once the five were at the deck, Nami asked Luffy a question. "Luffy, how did you make that statue?" Nami asked, really wondering how Luffy is able to create such a thing out of midair. "Oh, that. It's just me using one of my devil fruit powers," Luffy explained, causing Nami's eyes to widen. "Which devil fruits did you eat?" Nezuko asked curiously. "I ate the gum fruit and the atom fruit, making me a rubber and atom man," Luffy explained as both sisters looked at Luffy with amazement. The sisters knew that everything in this planet is made up of atoms. For one to be able to control all of them is downright frightening, yet amazing to them. As for the gum fruit, it just sounded so pathetic. However, this is Luffy they are talking about here. Maybe he found a good use to that power. Luffy then got one of the lifeboats on the cruise ship and threw it down with him in it. While halfway down, Luffy decided to try one of his new moves that involved the atom fruit. "Atomic size increase," Luffy exclaimed as the lifeboat became 10 times its original size. "Come on everyone, hop on and let's get out of here," Luffy called out to his crewmates. Half an hour later, the lifeboat had all 5 of them in it with Kobe, Nezuko, Luffy, and Marguerite rowing and Nami navigating them to the closest island, which subsequently also is where both Zoro and Kuina are. "Sigh, this is going to take a while, isn't it?" Nezuko asked as she stopped rowing and leaned back, making Nami's vein bulge in irritation. "Well, if you stop rowing, it would take even longer," Nami shouted in anger. Suddenly, Luffy also stopped rowing as he had an epiphany. "Damn it, not you too," Nami exclaimed once again in anger as she saw Luffy stop rowing as well. "No wait, I have an idea," Luffy explained as he raised his arms up and pointed them the opposite way they were heading. Soon enough, the bluish dust coming out of Luffy's arms went into the ocean and somehow caused a massive wave to take them the rest of the way to the island. After 10 minutes of high-speed sailing, they had reached the island, only to find the marine base on it sliced cleanly in half. At Shell's town with Zoro and Kuina, a sitting Zoro looked on at his newest masterpiece, ignoring the dead marine captain a couple feet away from him and his rival Kuina's bickering as he took in the sight before him. He still finds it amazing that he's capable of such a feat using the swords before him, the Sandai Kaitsu, Yubashiri, and Shusui. Over the decade, his daily spars with Kuina always ended with him breaking katanas. In order to stop wasting any more money in replacing Zoro's swords, Kuina took him to Logtown in order to get some higher quality swords. After some bet he had with the owner of a certain shop, he had gotten Yubashiri and the Sandai Kaitsu for free, no charge whatsoever. During the decade, they had left their home, going all over the East Blue in order to find stronger opponents. Their venture for finding stronger opponents have made the two rather infamous as the best swordsman duo in East Blue, to the point that they have gained the epithet Unity Pirate Hunters, with Kuina being known as the Yin Pirate Hunter and Zoro being known as the Young Pirate Hunter. When they came to this island to rest, they noticed how much the people feared the Marines, which confused them greatly. They soon knew why, however, when some Marine-guarded blonde dumbass who truly is as dumb as he looks purposefully let go of his wolf, which launched itself towards a little girl they soon came to know as Rika. Before the canine could even harm the little girl, Zoro sliced the wild wolf cleanly through the middle, killing it instantly. The blonde bastard, who they learned is named Helmeppo, tried to intimidate Zoro by threatening not only him, but the little girl as well. Kuina didn't take the threat too kindly as she pinned Helmeppo's thigh through the ground with a smaller katana that she kept along with Wado Ikamanji. After that, the two swordsmen walked towards the Marine base, where they stormed in and confronted the captain of the base, Axe-Hand Morgan. Captain Morgan started yelling at the two about how superior he is compared to them and how he would enjoy ravaging Kuina's body after he was done with them. Surprisingly, or unsurprisingly depending on how you look at it, Zoro took this the worst, as he didn't even give the man a chance to defend himself, as he not only sliced him in half through the middle, but the marine base behind him as well, including that stupid statue on the top. Zoro was brought back from his thoughts when he got struck on the head by Kuina's scabbard. "Pay attention to when I'm speaking to you, dumbass," Kuina scolded her partner, who just grunted in response. Even now, she still could not believe that the man beside her is her rival. Okay, just stop striking me in the head. Geez, what's with everybody striking me there?" Zoro asked himself as he now paid attention to Kuina. "As I was saying, can you feel that?" she asked him with a smirk, making him raise an eyebrow at her before realizing what she is implying. Using his observation haki, he focused around the island until he felt a strong, familiar presence. "Captain," Zoro breathed out as he stood up from where he sat and looked towards the direction of the docks. Sensing even more strong presences, he grinned and began to walk towards the docks with Kuina trailing not too far behind him. As they ignored the cheering coming from both the civilians and the Marines, much to their confusion, they continued walking towards the docks, where they focused their sights on the group of 5 in front of them. The moment Zoro and Kuina laid their eyes on the group, they were surprised by how big he got. He looked so much older, more mature in both of their opinions. "You've changed a lot, Captain," Zoro bluntly stated as he looked at the grinning man who kinda towered over him. "Thank you, Zoro. You and Kuina have changed quite a bit too," Luffy answered back as he continued to walk forward and looked on at the destruction that Zoro caused to the marine base. Much to everyone's surprise, Luffy slumped a bit before pouting. "Oh man, I wanted to beat up Morgan," Luffy complained, making those around him sweat drop and Zoro snicker. "Well, too bad, cause he's dead," Zoro stated uncaringly as he stretched his back a bit. As the group continued to chat and introduce each other, Commander Ripper walked up to them, interrupting their conversations. "Hello to you all. As much as I want to thank you, Mr. Roranoa, for killing off that corrupt abomination of justice, I'm going to ask you and your group to leave," Ripper stated professionally as the Marines behind him stood their guard. "But why? We just got here." Nami asked why they would be ordered to leave the island just as they got on it. "Well, we can't allow pirates on this island." And seeing as Mr. Roranoa said captain to the tall man in front of us who is obviously wearing a coat with his Jolly Roger on it, it's easy to connect the dots together, Commander Ripper explained, making them sigh in defeat. "Well, can we at least rest for a while? I'm hungry," Luffy exclaimed as his stomach gave a perfectly timed rumble. "But," Ripper tried to retort before being cut off by Luffy. "If you do, I'll fix up your marine base," Luffy offered, making Ripper just look at him with disbelief. "How can you possibly?" Again, Commander Ripper did not have a chance to finish his sentence as Luffy vanished from their sight. They all looked around in confusion until Kobe pointed towards the destroyed marine base. When they looked towards the base, they saw Luffy standing in the middle of it. They then saw a big cloud of bluish dust come out of Luffy, before said cloud went over and covered the destroyed marine base. "Atomic restoration," Luffy said as there is a bright glow that engulfed the area. Once the light dimmed down and the people opened their eyes, they saw the marine base back to its former glory. However, when Luffy used his move, he inadvertently also restored Morgan's statue. The moment Luffy laid his eyes on the statue, he aimed his index finger towards the statue as a small, bluish, ethereal orb formed on the tip of said finger. "Atomic dissipation," Luffy murmured as he fired off the small orb towards the statue. For a moment, nothing happened. Suddenly, though, people saw the statue slowly disintegrating into nothingness, as if it were never there in the first place. As Luffy walked back to the group, everyone, including Zoro and Kuina, just looked at the straw hat-wearing man with awe, seeing the feats that he pulled off. As Luffy walked up to Commander Ripper, he asked once more, "So, can we stay now?" After 6 hours, the Straw Hat Pirates decided to leave Shell's Town as they resupplied and went back to their boat. During their stay, Luffy convinced Commander Ripper to take in Kobe as well as Helmeppo into the Marines after truthfully saying that he's not a spy whatsoever. Luffy then gave Kobe a piece of his own Viva card to him along with his Den Mushy number whenever he wants to call him. When Luffy thought about it, he was breaking record time going from island to island. From what he remembers, he knew it took almost the entire week to reach Orange Town, especially considering that neither he or Zoro knew how to navigate. Now though, they had Nami guiding them through the sea along with Luffy using his Atom fruit powers to speed up the journey immensely. While waiting before reaching Orange Town, Luffy decided he wanted to know more about the abilities of each of his crewmates. "Did you really have to eat all of our food, Luffy?" Kuina asked as she watched Luffy in amazement as he literally dumped the contents of 3 of 4 barrels of provisions into his mouth. Luffy spoke after he had eaten all of the food in his mouth. "Of course, I get hungry really fast whenever I use my Atom fruit powers for long periods of times like this. But that doesn't mean you can just take most of the food, Luffy. I mean, sure, we are making amazing progress towards the next island, but you can't just keep abusing your powers like that." Nami chastised her captain, who in return just gave her a sheepish grin. Yeah, sorry about that, but I was just really hungry. Anyways, I think that each of us should know more about each other, not just for trust, but to see what each and every single one of you are capable of. So, what are you guys capable of? Luffy asked his crewmates. This time, he wanted to make sure he acted more like a captain and also wanted to make sure his crewmates themselves knew what each one of them are capable of, thereby allowing them to work better together and plan things out with more ease than before. Nami began first. I am, of course, a skilled thief that is also your navigator. I can sense the shifts in the atmosphere and predict 100% correctly what's going to happen next, therefore keeping us away from danger whenever possible. Both of my haki types are really good, though my specialty is armament haki. I am well versed in using my climate act both in physical fighting and in weather manipulation, Nami stated, making those around her nod in understanding. Nijiko went next as she took out a knife and a revolver from her belt, showing that she has 2 more revolvers in said belt, before twirling her weapons around her hands skillfully. Just like Nami, I am also a skilled thief and a navigator, just not as good as Nami in the navigating aspect though. I mainly use this knife and my guns when I fight, as I'm not really strong physically. Unlike Nami, my haki specialization is in observation haki. In general, I'm someone who specializes in hit and run tactics, not fighting my opponents head on, Nijiko told them, making them nod again as they absorbed the information presented to them. Zoro soon went after. I am a swordsman who uses the 3-sword style, short and simple. I cut and slice through any and every single one of my problems that come towards me. I am capable of all 3 types of haki, but I specialize in armament haki. That's all you guys need to know for now, Zoro stated as he gripped Shusui. Hyuna went as soon as Zoro stopped talking. Like Zoro, I am also a swordsman, rather, a swordswoman to be more precise. I mainly use the Shimitsuki 1-sword style, though once in a while I will use my matching wakizashi I named Wado Chisai with my Wado Ikamanchi. I have some skill in navigating, though probably not as good as either Nijiko or Nami. In terms of haki, I'm well versed in both observation and armament, but side more towards armament. Hyuna spoke to the group, who then looked at both Marguerite and Luffy as they are the last ones who haven't said anything. Marguerite spoke first. I am an archer who is also well versed in hand-to-hand combat when the situation calls for it. Through Luffy, I learned how to use the Rokushiki techniques Tekai, Soru, Jeppu, Kami-e, Shigen, and Rankyaku. I use my bow snake here, as the name implies, as a bow. I'm equally skilled in both armament and observation haki, specializing in neither of them, Marguerite stated as she coddled her bow snake as it wrapped around her arm. They then turned their gaze on their captain Luffy. Luffy smiled at his crewmates as he opened the palm of his hand, let a ball of blue dust like gas form floating above his palm. I ate both the gum fruit and the atom fruit, making me an atomic rubber man. I mainly use my fists and my legs for fighting, using my devil fruit powers to make my attacks stronger. I also use the Rokushiki, like Marguerite, being a master in all of its moves. I am a master of all forms of haki, but my specialty would be Conqueror's haki. I mainly use my gum fruit powers when I fight up close, and I usually tend to use the atom fruit for other things, but will use it to fight when needed, Luffy stated as he let the atom ball dissipate into nothingness. His crewmates were amazed by his abilities. They already knew how incredible that their captain is, as he built back Shell's town's marine base in an instant, so for them to see that he usually uses it for other things instead of fighting kind of surprised them. The only ones that were confused by Luffy's decision were only Nami and Nijiko, as they haven't seen Luffy use the gum fruit in combat like the others. Wait, Luffy, how is the gum fruit useful in combat? Nijiko asked in wonder. It's what helped me reach and save your mom from getting killed by Arlong. Luffy merely replied with a grin. Nami and Nijiko froze. Was that how Luffy was able to reach them before Arlong killed their mother? But this brought up one more question for them. How? They both asked in confusion. Luffy stood up, smiling at them, before extending his left arm, causing all of the crew to see a massive bulge pass throughout his body, before his body suddenly began to steam up while his skin gained a pinkish hue. This is the technique that I used to help me save your mom in time. I call it Gear Second. By speeding up my blood flow, I am able to move much faster than what I can normally move, Luffy explained as he slowed down his blood flow, ending his technique and returning his body back to its original state. When Luffy was about to sit down, he noticed three presences coming his crew's way. When he looked towards that direction, he can see a small ship with what appeared to be three of Buggy's men moving towards their general direction. You six, stop, they yelled in unison as they waved their cutlasses towards them. The Straw Hats just looked at each other with a deadpan stare. Couldn't they see that they were both outnumbered and outclassed? Luffy just took one more look at them before aiming his right index finger towards their direction, mainly their swords. Atomic dissipation. Luffy muttered as he shot 3 spheres made of deconstructing atoms towards the grunts' cutlasses, causing them to drop said weapons and look on in both shock and horror at seeing their weapon disintegrating into nothingness. Immediately they tried to get away, but soon found themselves knocked on the ground near unconsciousness with Marguerite aiming her snake bow at the 3. If any one of you tries to make a move against us again, you all will lose your defining male feature. She threatened successfully as she can see the shit stains on the pirate's pants. Please, we surrender. Take anything you want. Just don't kill us. The 3 grunts yelled in fear as they looked at the blonde Amazonian with horror in their eyes. Nejiko and Nami somehow during all of this went inside their small ship, took all of their valuables, and left without any of them noticing sans Luffy and Kuina. Luffy merely shook his head in amusement while Kuina stifled a giggle. Soon after, they left the 3 grunts to on their own and looked on towards the direction they were headed. They soon saw the island as the enlarged lifeboat continued on in its path. When they got there, they noticed the massive havoc going throughout the town on said island, along with a massive pirate ship that appeared to have just docked on the island. Just one look at the Jolly Roger and everyone knew who these pirates were, the Buggy Pirates. For Luffy, he had no problem with Buggy in the past as he has helped his crew many times before. However, at this point in time, they are enemies, and judging by the looks on his crewmates' faces, they look ready to tear Buggy's crew a new one. Nami and Nejiko gritted their teeth in anger at seeing the pandemonium going on in the town just because of the Buggy Pirates. It reminded them of when Arlong and his crew of fishmen came over to the Konomi Islands, terrorizing any and every person that lived there. Everyone else just looked on at the scene with seriousness visible in their eyes. Everyone, this is going to be our first battle against pirates. Just do what you gotta do to win this, alright? Luffy stated to his crewmates, causing Zoro, Nami, and Marguerite to smirk while a small smile graced Kuina's and Nejiko's lips. You think this will be a battle, Captain? No, this ... this is going to be a massacre, Zoro stated with a twisted grin plastered on his face. Luffy, you of all people should know that this will be as easy as taking a little walk down the beach for us. Marguerite spoke as she stood up from her seat and readied her snake bow. Let's show these bastards what we are capable of, Nami and Nejiko exclaimed as they readied their respective weapons. Luffy used his atom fruit powers to lift up the boat and into the air, preparing a nice surprise for Buggy and his crew. With Buggy and his crew at Orange Town, Buggy looked on at this town, his eyes twinkling in excitement. From what he has seen through his scout's observations, Orange Town is a plentiful place with many things of value. My men, this will be our first step towards flashily owning all of the treasures on land. Take every single valuable you can find. Leave the civilians alone unless they attack you. Then you have my permission to flashily do whatever you want with said person, Buggy commanded his crew, who yelled in agreement to their captain as they left to raid the town. Very lively crew, aren't they? A seductive voice stated out as she twirled a spiked steel mace that is twice her size with complete ease. She is wearing a cowboy hat over her wavy black hair. Her pale, slim yet curvaceous body is currently being covered by an open purple coat showing her white bra along with a pair of striped white and red pants that seem to be one size too small for her, and a pair of brown cowboy boots. Her cherry red lips were the same color as her fingernails. Yes, they are Alvida ... Yes, they are. Let's show these civilians how flashy we can be, Buggy stated with a grin as he got off his ship with Alvida and his first mate Moji and his second mate Kabaji following closely behind. Half of Buggy's grunts haven't made it beyond the first block before they were struck down with a hail of wind blades raining down upon them. When they looked up at the direction the wind blades came from, they saw a large lifeboat floating above them before it descended down to the ground, showing who is attacking him and his crew. Who the hell are you flashy bastards? I will give you a flashy death for going against me, Buggy exclaimed as he took out his knives while his 3 elite crew members readied their respective weapons. Moji got on his lion Richie, who looked on at the Straw Hats hungrily while Kabaji got on top of his unicycle and took out his cutlass from his mouth. Alvida just looked at the crew wearily before she laid her eyes on the man who beat her 2 years ago. Well, look who we have here, Alvida said as she stared at Luffy with lust-filled eyes. Nami took note of this and immediately hated this woman for eyeing Luffy like dog would a piece of meat. Guys, I'll deal with Buggy. You all can choose your opponents, Luffy stated as he walked casually towards Buggy as he cracked his knuckles. The woman's mine, Nami announced venomously as she readied her climb attacked and rushed at the woman. The guy on the unicycle better be a challenge, Zoro commented on his opponent as he took out Shusui and walked towards the dark green-haired man. The beast man is going to be destroyed, Marguerite declared as she encased her fists with armament haki and walked in stride towards the beast tamer. Well, it looks like it's up to the 2 of us to clean up the rest of Buggy's cohorts. I hope you're ready, Kuina remarked as she took out Wado Ikamanji and Wado Chisa and looked towards the group of grunts that had gathered around the 2 women. Please, this will be just a warm-up for us and you know it, Nejiko stated as she took out her knife and her flintlock pistol, ready to face the group of men who looked at the two with lecherous faces, much to their disgust. Nami versus Alvida. Nami glared at Alvida as she rushed towards her, Nami's staff poised to strike Alvida's smug face. To Nami's surprise, when her staff struck Alvida, the end of her staff slipped off her face, doing no damage whatsoever. Nami quickly got out of her confusion as she felt her observation haki telling her to move out of the way from an incoming attack. When she moved, she saw Alvida's mace land right where Nami stood a moment ago. When the mace hit the ground, she saw the ground cave in with a 2-meter radius around the place the mace struck. You see the difference between us, little girl. I am much stronger than you and you can't touch me for I ate the smooth fruit, making it so all attacks against me slip away right when it touches me. It also had the side effect of removing my freckles after I ate it though, such a shame. Alvida haughtily announced as she flicked her hair behind her. Nami trembled in anger before exploding. Who are you calling little? Nami exclaimed as she tightened her grip on the climb attack. You of course, especially when you consider the breast and ass department, Alvida taunted Nami, who just exploded in even more rage. You know what? I was planning on withholding this move a little while longer, but if it will make you shut up, then I'll gladly use it. Nami exclaimed as a long chain of dark clouds came out of the end of her climb attack. Black Ball, Ray and Rod, Nami exclaimed as she swung her staff at Alvida with newfound speed, not giving Alvida the chance to dodge the attack. The moment the clouds hit Alvida, massive amounts of lightning struck her, causing Alvida to scream in pain and agony. This kept going for 4 seconds before Alvida's screaming stopped and Nami ended her attack. Alvida still stood, albeit a bit shakily before she coughed out smoke and fainted, falling towards the ground and into the caved-in floor in front of her. Nami could still sense her presence, meaning she is still alive after all of that, causing Nami to sigh in relief. Nami may be greedy and heartless at times, but by no means does she not have a problem with killing people. Just because some of those in her crew can and may do it like Zoro, Hyuna, Marguerite, and Luffy does not mean that she would do it as well, unless of course it is in a life or death situation. Now then, time to see what they got. Nami commented to herself as she used her sneaking skills to get into Buggy's ship. Zoro versus Kabaji. Kabaji looked on at the green-haired swordsman in anticipation and eagerness. It has been one of his goals to best at least one of the legendary Unity swordsman duo. Now that he has the chance to face one, he hopes that in defeating him that his reputation will increase substantially. Roar Noah Zoro, it is an honor to face you, Kabaji said as he pointed his cutlass towards Zoro, who just looked back at Kabaji with a calculating gaze. I really hope you aren't a waste of my time, Zoro remarked as he entered into his one-sword form. Kabaji didn't give an answer as he cycled towards Zoro before jumping off his unicycle and front flipping before using the momentum he gained from the front flip to strike Zoro with his cutlass. Zoro brought up Shusui to block the attack. As the two swordsmen kept pushing their blades, Kabaji puffed his chest in preparation for his next move. Acrobatics, Old Man's Flame, Kabaji announced as he let out a stream of fire from his mouth towards Zoro, who used his observation haki to anticipate what Kabaji was planning on doing and moved out of the way with a speed much faster than Kabaji anticipated. One sword style, Lion's Song. Zoro voiced the name of his technique as Kabaji suddenly found himself in intense pain and losing consciousness. Zoro looked at the man disappointedly as he sheathed his blade back into its scabbard. I expected more from you. This fight is quite dissatisfying to say the least. I wonder if there are swordsmen who are more capable than this in the East Blue. Zoro pondered as he noticed Nami sneaking into Buggy's ship. She's probably looking for gold or something like that. Might as well see what kind of booze they in there as well, Zoro commented to himself as he walked towards the ship without a care in the world. Marguerite versus Moji. Marguerite just stared uncaringly at the beast tamer. During her training with Luffy, she had battled much bigger and stronger creatures than this, and she was much younger no less. She looked at her opponent and saw that he had a grin on his face that essentially said that there is no chance for her to win. It really annoyed her. I suggest you run back to your captain, girlie. I won't be responsible for your death should you decide to continue this. Plus Richie here is really hungry, so I'd leave if I were you, Moji warned as Richie started growling at Marguerite who just deadpanned at the man. Just shut up and fight me. God, you are so annoying, Marguerite muttered out as she entered a fighting stance. Don't say I didn't warn you. Richie, attack, Moji commanded as Richie rushed towards Marguerite and went to clamp his jaws over her torso. Right when Richie was about to, Marguerite went under Richie and aimed for his underbody. Tekai Kenpo, Palm Strike, Marguerite shouted out as she struck Richie with an armament and Tekai enhanced palm strike from under, causing the lion and Moji to be launched in the air with extreme amounts of force. After about 5 seconds of constantly going up, Marguerite crouched when she noticed that they started to come down. Jeppu, Marguerite commented to herself as she launched herself into the air. She noticed how far apart Moji and Richie were from each other, so she decided to attack Moji. Tekai Kenpo, butterfly kick, she exclaimed as she twirled herself in order to gain momentum for the kick before striking Moji in the face with her left foot, causing a semi-conscious Moji to be launched at an incredible speed, causing a shockwave and a crater when he landed. When Marguerite gracefully landed, she noticed something odd about the greatly weakened lion. When she went up for a closer look, she noticed that he hasn't been fed for a long time and is whimpering in pain. She went and picked up a semi-conscious Moji by the shirt in anger. When was the last time you fed that lion? She questioned dangerously. About a week ago was all he uttered out before succumbing to his injuries and knocking out. When she heard the so-called beast tamer's answer, she punched his unconscious body through one of the abandoned houses before returning to Richie. I'm sorry for hurting you. Let me get you some food as an apology. Marguerite spoke soothingly, making Richie mule and understanding, weakly getting up and following Marguerite to get some grub. Hyuna and Nijiko versus the cannon fodder. So it's 2 against 60. Nijiko noted as she tensed her muscles, ready for action. I can take care of all of them on my own. But then you wouldn't have your own fun now, wouldn't you? Hyuna asked, making Nijiko smile at her question. You are right. Let's get this over with, Nijiko said as she took out 2 of her revolvers and incapacitated 4 mooks in quick succession. Watch my back, Nijiko, Hyuna playfully yelled out as she sliced 3 grunts down with her wado before jumping into the air. Camellia Blade Storm. Hyuna called out the name of her attack as she fired a literal storm of wind blades towards a major chunk of the group, effectively eliminating 20 of them and causing damage to 13 more. While this was happening, Nijiko eliminated 8 more with her revolvers before using her knife to stealthily take out 5 more. How many more? Hyuna asked, never taking her eyes off of their opponents. 20 more. Of those 20, only 7 of them are in perfect condition while the other 13 are seriously injured, but are still capable of fighting. Nijiko noted as she reloaded 2 of her 3 revolvers. Bring out the mobile buggy cannon, Mr. Big, one of the grunts exclaimed, causing the biggest grunt now known as Big to pull out a cannon, aiming it towards the 2 straw hats. Take this, you bitches, Big exclaimed in a lispy voice as he fired a buggy ball towards the Hyuna and Nijiko. Nijiko, get behind me, Hyuna yelled at the light blue-haired woman, who did as she was told. Hyuna then focused her armament haki towards her wado ikamanji and sliced the buggy ball in half, causing the now unstable modified cannon ball to go into 2 different routes, destroying many buildings and houses that are in its path. When she realized what she had done, Hyuna's anger rose, making her grab wado chisai, infuse it with armament haki, and throw it as hard as she could right into Big's forehead, making his head explode upon impact. NOOO, BIIIG, the grunts exclaimed in shock, sadness, and fear. They turned their heads to look at a livid Hyuna and an angry Nijiko. The grunts looked at each other before nodding in agreement. We surrender, they exclaimed as they knelt down and laid their weapons down. That was easy, Hyuna noted as she took back wado chisai, cleaned it on Big's shirt, and sheathed it back on its scabbard. It sure was. Tie them up, Nijiko said as she kept her revolvers aimed at the conscious grunts of Buggy to make sure they don't try anything stupid against them. Once Hyuna tied all of them up, including with the unconscious ones, she and Nijiko lead them back to Buggy's ship. Luffy versus Buggy. Luffy looked on at Buggy with a smile plastered on his face. Sure, in the beginning they may have started off on the wrong foot, but soon enough they had many meetups with each other, helping one another with their problems when they had any. But that was then, this is now. You damn flashy bastard, I'll make you pay for what you did to my men. Buggy growled out as he took out his knives, ready to strike Luffy with them. But I didn't do anything to your men. That was all on Hyuna, Luffy explained, instantly calming Buggy down. Oh really? Well, I apologize for my why am I apologizing for? You're the captain. Take responsibility for your crewmates' actions, Buggy exclaimed in anger as he threw 3 of his knives towards Luffy. Luffy didn't even flinch. Atom's shield, Luffy said as a big, bluish-white transparent dish appeared in front of Luffy. When the knives hit Luffy's shield, they disintegrated into nothingness, shocking Buggy at what he can do. You, what devil fruit did you eat? Buggy questioned warily as he saw Luffy's atom shield dissipate into nothingness, like his knives. I am not telling you, Luffy remarked seriously as he gave off a piercing gaze towards Buggy. Oh, okay. If you don't want to tell me, that's fine. I'll find out whether you like it or not. Screw what you say, Buggy yelled angrily as he infused his fists and knives with armament haki. Bari Bari Cannon. Buggy called out his attack as his blackened knives and fists were launched at Luffy at such a speed that Luffy actually had to dodge quickly. Luffy quickly recomposed himself at seeing Buggy use haki this early, along with using his devil fruit powers with much more ferocity. So he can use haki now. Well, that's another change from my timeline, Luffy thought as he decided to end this quickly. Before he could do anything though, Buggy's hands were coming back, aiming themselves towards Luffy's kidneys. Luffy used his armament haki and quickly smacked away Buggy's hands back to the clown pirate. Luffy then pumped his blood faster, entering gear second. Gum gum. Luffy began as he threw his haki-infused arms behind him, stretching to great lengths before appearing in front of Buggy in almost an instant. Jet Bazooka. Luffy roared out as his palms struck Buggy with massive amounts of force, causing him to be launched into the sky, Alvida style. Kuers Uau Straya all hat. Buggy exclaimed as he disappeared into the sky with a twinkle. Why is it that every time I launch someone into the sky, they twinkle away? I'll never get why the mystery twinkle happens, Luffy noted to himself as he rubbed his chin thoughtfully. He turned around to see Zoro walking towards him whilst dragging Moji, Kabaji, and Alvida behind him. He then turned his attention to a really happy Nami, who is currently holding a cartoonishly large brown sack behind her with relative ease. He then pointed his attention towards the direction Marguerite came from and saw his brother's girlfriend walking alongside a satisfied Richie. He then heard lots of mumbling and grumbling, so naturally he turned towards the direction of the noise and was surprised by what he saw. The entire Buggy Pirate group sans their officers and their captain got defeated by only 2 of his own crewmates. Sure, he expected Kuina to be capable of, since she is essentially a female Zoro, but for Nijiko to have been able to hold her own without a scratch has impressed him greatly. As a matter of fact, none of his crew members have taken no damage whatsoever in their battles. So far, Luffy is impressed by his crewmates' strength, and with how they dealt with their opponents more efficiently than before. So what are your thoughts on this? Luffy asked his crew with an amused smile on his face, wanting to know how they felt about their first battle against a crew of pirates. They were pathetically easy. If this is strong as they come, then we should have no problem conquering the Grand Line, Zoro commented as he let go of the buggy's commanding officers and let them drop to the ground. Personally, I'm just glad I got this harlot to shut up, Nami stated as she glared at Alvida with hate and disgust. I'm disgusted by this so-called beast tamer. He hasn't even fed this poor lion for a week, Marguerite remarked as she coddled Richie, who purred in happiness. They were too pathetic, and they destroyed many buildings when we fought. Kuina spoke to Luffy as brought in all of Buggy's brutes, and she killed the biggest one of them all. Nijiko added on as she holstered her 2 revolvers and had 4 of the grunts rest as they dropped the dead pig's body on the floor. Luffy turned his attention to Buggy's cohorts. I sent your captain flying that way, Luffy said to the mortified pirates as he pointed towards the direction he sent Buggy. If I were you, I'd go and save him before he falls in water or something like that, Luffy advised offhandedly as he removed the ropes tying the grunts together. The moment they were freed from them, they immediately ran towards their ship, taking Big's corpse and their commanding officers with them. Before Richie can go with them as well, Marguerite looked at him dead in the eye. If your dumb master keeps treating you wrong, rebel against him, for he is not worthy of you, okay? She told Richie, who nodded happily at what Marguerite said before leaving with the rest of his crew. Okay guys, now that that's over, I think it's time we rest up as the sun is setting down, Luffy said as he took a look at the sun going over the horizon. Since the travel time from Shell's Town and Orange Town went down from Luffy's original 1 week down to 6 hours, and they left at 1 in the afternoon, and they fought off the Buggy Pirates, which took a little while more, ended up with it being around 7:30 in the afternoon. Luffy's right. If we're to be at full strength tomorrow, we going to need all of the rest we could get, Nami advised as she lifted up the bag of treasure. Luffy, can you be a dear and help with all of this treasure? Nami cutely asked as she winked at her captain. Luffy, being the kind of person to help his friends, used his devil fruit powers to levitate her massive bag. Okay Nami, Luffy happily responded as he walked towards the center of the town. That manipulative woman, Zoro muttered before following suit. I hope we can get a nice suite in this place, Nijiko mused as both Kuina and Marguerite smiled at the thought. As they continued to walk down the street, they noticed all of the townspeople armed up and ready for battle. Who are you? As both the mayor and commander of this group, I demand you to tell me who you guys are, the mayor commanded. When Luffy walked up to the mayor realized how small Luffy made him feel, but that did not deter him. My name is Monkey D. Luffy, captain of the Straw Hat Pirates. These are my crewmates Nami, Zoro, Marguerite, Nijiko, and Kuina. Luffy introduced himself and his crew in a friendly manner, surprising the residents of the town by how friendly this pirate captain is being. Straw Hat Pirates, so you're not allied with the Buggy Pirates in any manner? The mayor further questioned. Nope, we just came here to resupply in food and have a rest. However, we wouldn't be able to do that with them in our way, so we kicked their asses back to Sunday, Luffy explained before he suddenly found himself thinking. Bacon chocolate sundae, Luffy thought as saliva began to ooze out of his mouth. Nami decided to step in and negotiate for Luffy as he is obviously off in dreamland. Well, since the Buggy Pirates are gone and you no longer have anything to worry about, how about letting us stay for the night? It is getting pretty dark out there and you would want to leave 4 maidens out in the open now, would you? Nami expressed in a seductive voice as she showed a bit of cleavage towards the mayor, in order to make the situation in her favor. She's a witch, Zoro deadpanned as Nijiko patted his back in acknowledgement. You have no idea, Zoro. You have no idea, Najiko stated ominously as she remembered the past times she and her sister went off to rob pirates and corrupt noble. Well, since you all did get rid of the pirates and minimize the damage as best as you could, Kuina felt a little guilty when the mayor said that part. As a thank you for all you pirates have done, you can in any of our hotels for free, with an all-you-can-eat banquet, the mayor proclaimed proudly as the crowd of civilians cheered for them. The moment Luffy heard the word banquet is when he snapped out of his daydream and looked at the mayor with starstruck eyes. You really mean that? The all-you-can-eat banquet? Luffy inquired excitedly. Yes indeed, Mr. Luffy. I hope you enjoy yourself, the mayor responded, making Luffy jump up in the air in happiness. Yeah, free food, Luffy exclaimed happily. Today definitely was a good day for Luffy and his crew. Luffy looked on towards the horizon as he pondered on what his dream meant. He and his crew left Orange Town at midday in order to get everything in order. The Mayor Boodle had given his crew a small ship, which was the only one that the Buggy Pirates didn't destroy before their futile attempt to raid the town. The moment they had received the boat from Boodle, Luffy used atomic size, increased to make the boat 4 times bigger as to give them more space as it originally seemed to accommodate comfortably 3 people at best. Ironically, by making the boat 4 times bigger, he had also made the door, beds, and everything else 4 times bigger, essentially making them unusable to the crew, with the exception being for the beds. Once they had everything in order, and had Luffy fixed the proportions of the boat along with shrinking their lifeboat to 1/100th of its original size, they set out once more to the sea. So Luffy, where's our next destination? Nami asked as she got her maps and compass ready. We're headed to Syrup Village. Our next crewmates are going to be there, Luffy stated as he aimed his finger towards the direction he felt Usopp and Kaya's presence, before his eyes narrowed a bit. What's this? Luffy thought as he put even more focus towards his crew's sniper and combat medic's general area. There's one more presence there that seemed really familiar, yet unfamiliar before it finally clicked. It's Mary. But what caught Luffy's attention to it specifically is why does his aura seem darker than usual? Sure, he also sensed that his aura size is around mid-Grand Line level, maybe even higher if he's suppressing it, but that really isn't what caught his attention in the first place, but rather the feeling he got towards it. It worried him a little. Sure, he knows that both Usopp and Kaya got training from high New World level bounty hunters, and judging by their aura sizes it did them really good. Not to mention that Mary in his original timeline was a really great guy. But he has seen enough in his first timeline to see that things aren't as they always seem and everything can go to shit in less than a second. Not wanting to think any further on this, Luffy decided it was time that he called Hancock. Oh, how he misses her and Robin so much. It's been a long time since he has seen them both and he longs to be with them again. He went inside the boat, not noticing Kuina staring at him. With Luffy's crew, Suo, is Luffy always like this? Kuina asked Marguerite, who currently is feeding her bow snake. What do you mean? Marguerite politely questioned back. Well, he acts so carefree, yet he seems to be hiding something under all that. He really doesn't seem to be the kind to always be thinking about. Kuina explained as she usually saw Luffy with either a happy grin plastered on his face or a rather hilarious blank face most of the time. On certain occasions, though, she has seen Luffy have a troubled or serious expression, which is the main reason why she's asking Marguerite this question in the first place. If you're talking about how he acts, then I'm as clueless as you are. Luffy has always been like that for as long as I can remember. Whenever someone close to him asked him about it, he mainly stated that it was nothing or that it was none of our concern. Marguerite explained as she let her bow snake wrap itself around her arm after she finished feeding it. If you want to ask him about it, go right ahead. But don't say I didn't tell you, Marguerite commented as she entered the boat alongside Kuina. When they entered the room, they noticed Luffy beginning to call someone with his den mushy. Who you calling this time, Luffy? Marguerite asked Luffy, who just turned towards her direction and grinned. Hancock. It's around the time I promised to call her, so I decided to do it right now since we have plenty of time before we reach the next island. Luffy responded as he finished dialing up the number and waited for Hancock to pick up. While this is going on, Nami, Najiko, and Zoro entered the room as well. What's going on? Zoro questioned as Nami, and Najiko stared at Luffy. Luffy's going to call Boa Hancock, one of the 7 warlords of the seas, Marguerite explained as everyone sans Luffy stared at her with disbelief. WHAAAA2. They yelled in shock and surprise. They never knew that Luffy has contact with such a powerful figure. Why though? They further questioned. Well, I did promise her that I would call her weekly and so far it's been great. She always worries about me, which I kinda find a bit embarrassing, but hey, what can I do? Luffy responded cheekily as he heard the den mushy being picked up on the other side. Luffy, everyone heard Hancock softly ask, making Luffy smile heartwarmingly at hearing her melodic voice once more. Hancock, I started my journey not too long ago. It's only been 2 days and so far I have 6 people here, including me. Luffy happily stated, making a giggle come out of Hancock's mouth. Of course, dear. May you introduce me to them? Hancock politely asked Luffy. Yeah, sure. Guys, come on and introduce yourselves. Luffy told his crewmates, who seemed a bit nervous with speaking to a warlord. I'm Muranoa Zoro, swordsman. Zoro merely said. To him, it is short and straight to the point, so hopefully some professionalism will help him not get on her bad side. They don't take random people to become warlords. Greetings, Ms. Hancock. My name is Kuina, and I am a swordswoman. Kuina stated politely. I'm Nami, the crew's navigator. It's a pleasure to meet you. Nami vocalized out hesitantly. For some reason, she got the feeling she wouldn't like the woman, but the fear of facing a warlord's wrath overcame that feeling of hatred. And I'm Nijiko, the crew's spy. I hope we get along. Nijiko spoke out in a somewhat serious tone. So you lot are part of Luffy's crew along with Marguerite, huh? Hancock questioned in a much different tone of voice. This startled Luffy's crew sans Luffy and Marguerite as they can hear Hancock's personality take a complete 180. Before, they could practically feel the love and adoration coming from Hancock's voice when she was talking to Luffy. Now though her tone of voice changed, becoming cold, serious, commanding, and regal all at once. Luffy chose all of you for a reason, so I will most definitely not question him about his choices for crewmates since you all must have something unique to give him. However, should I hear that you lot are causing him unnecessary problems, as his girlfriend, I will personally deal with you myself in the most brutal way I can think of without crippling you permanently. He is your captain and I expect you all to obey him without question. Am I clear? Hancock questioned dangerously, setting off a shit ton of alarms off in Kuina, Nami, Nijiko, and Zoro's head. Yes, ma'am, they instinctually exclaimed as if their life depended on it. By the look the Den Mushi had on its face, they all can tell that Hancock looked unamused by their response. Marguerite, Hancock said monotonously, grabbing Marguerite's attention. I'm relying on you to keep them in line and to make sure they don't do anything to tarnish Luffy's name. This is my mission to you. Understood? Hancock ordered Marguerite in a politer, yet commanding tone. Marguerite gave a small smile at hearing her order. She was planning on doing that anyways as the crew's senior member. Understood, Snake Empress. Marguerite affirmed in a strong, yet submissive tone. Good. Hancock merely stated before her personality once more took a 180 when she began talking back to Luffy. Now Luffy, I know you're going to achieve your dream in record time. I wish you and your crew the best. Good luck out there, dear. Hancock softly vocalized, making Luffy blush a bit as he laughed good-heartedly. Thank you, Hancock. I will call the moment I enter the Grand Line, all right. Luffy promised, receiving a yes from Hancock before they both hung up. The entire room was silent for a good moment as Nami, Nijiko, Zoro, and Kuina took in what just happened. Nami is the first to speak. Wait a minute, girlfriend. Nami hollered out in shock, making Marguerite look at her. Well, the Snake Empress is one of Luffy's girlfriends, Marguerite corrected, making Nami look at her even more wide-eyed before looking at Luffy angrily. And when were you planning on telling us about this, Luffy? Nami yelled angrily at her captain, who just laughed sheepishly. I was planning on telling you all when the topic came up. Honest, Luffy pleaded as he raised his hands up in a mock surrender fashion. Nami could only sputter out incoherent words and mixed emotions before she left the room. Nijiko realized that this revelation could turn out bad for her sister, so she went after her to make sure she does not anything out of haste. Zoro let out a low whistle before smirking at Luffy. Damn, Luffy, never thought that you'd be quite acquainted with someone of that stature. A strong man needs a stronger woman by his side. Zoro complimented as he gave a firm pat on Luffy's back. Before realizing what he just said, he turned his head to look at Kuina, who had an amused expression on her face, making Zoro turn away to avoid showing Kuina his reddened face. With Nijiko and Nami, Nijiko softly uttered out as she looked at her trembling little sister who looked on at the horizon, not showing her face to anyone. She could tell that Nami isn't taking the news on Luffy's relationship status well. She walked up to her sister and softly placed her hand on her left shoulder. No, Nami softly whispered. Nijiko, only being able to pick up what she said thanks to her haki, suddenly looked up into the sky. Pure unadulterated conviction etched on her face. No, I will not falter. I will not stop. I will prove to Luffy that I am worthy. I will be his queen. Nami yelled towards the heavens as she pumped herself up, completely ignoring the now smiling Nijiko. Nijiko merely shook her head as she left Nami to her own devices. She took out a map and compass to see if they're still headed towards the Gecko Islands. If she paid more attention to Nami, she would have noticed a flicker of fire in her eyes as she said that. 2 days later, everyone, the Gecko Islands are just over there, Nami stated as she got everyone's attention. Everyone could see the bundle of islands just as they passed the horizon. Soon, however, much to their surprise, an arrow passed all of them and hit the wall behind them. What the? Kuina yelled in surprise as she took a good look at the arrow and pulled it out of the wall. She saw that there was a letter tied to the arrow for Luffy. She gave the letter to her captain, who read the letter out loud. Luffy, it's about time you got here. Me and Kaya are waiting for you at beach. Sincerely, the great Captain Usopp. Luffy said as he read what it said on the letter. Smirking, Luffy used his Atom fruit powers to pick up the pace and reach his sniper and her girlfriend sooner. Everyone, grab onto something, Luffy warned as the boat suddenly reached neck-breaking speeds. Zoro and Kuna stabbed their katanas to the ground so they won't fall. Michiko stabbed her knife on the rail of the boat while grabbing onto Nami. Marguerite just stood there, already used to Luffy's sudden changes of speeds whenever he becomes impatient and picks up the pace. Once they had reached the shallow part of the beach, Luffy decelerated the boat to a complete stop. Damn it, Luffy. Make the warning a little earlier so we can prepare better. Both Zoro and Nami roared angrily as they tried to smack Luffy's head with haki-infused fists, only for said fists to be easily caught by their captain's own unprotected hands, while he just grinned at the two. Maybe you two just need to improve your reaction timing, Luffy retorted as he let go of their fists. Usopp, Kaya, it's good to see you two again. How you been? Luffy asked as he turned from Nami and Zoro to look at their new crewmates. Usopp is most definitely the one who has gained the most change out of all the crew so far. Heck, he's even bulkier than when his crew reunited in Sabayati 2 years after Kuma separated them. He seemed to have grown a good 3 inches, changing his original height from 5'8.5" to 5'11.5", making him even taller than Zoro. Whatever the perditionist did to him seemed to have done wonders to his body, it seems. He's wearing a camouflage tank top and forest green baggy overalls along with a pair of running boots. His black woolly hair is tied in a ponytail fashion with a camouflaged sun visor over his eyes. Like before, his red-tinted goggles are around his neck resting in place. On the side of his legs there are 2 rectangular metal boxes, probably where he holds his arrows and his gadgets. On his back he can see a type of frame that is holding 3 weapons, a very intricate and adorned gold and ivory bow, a lever-action repeating rifle, and a black slingshot that looks like a black version of his slingshot Kabuto. Kaya, on the other hand, looks much more womanly than before, her fine face looking very bright, smiling at Luffy and the rest, her long, blonde hair drifting lightly in the wind. She's wearing a pale long-sleeved yellow dress that reaches below her knees and looks to also be wearing flexible black leggings along with a pair of armored boots. Over her clothing she is wearing a chest plate that's covering all of her vitals along with shoulder plates and gauntlets to complete the fit. On the left side her waist is where her sword is kept, looking radiant as ever, especially with its golden drill-shaped scabbard. Overall, Kaya and Usopp looked ready for action and looked even more intimidating than they ever had in his first timeline. Everyone, I'd like you all to meet our new crewmates Usopp and Kaya, Luffy introduced happily as grinned at his sniper and combat medic. Usopp puffed up his chest proudly as he raised his closed fist to his heart while Kaya gave a serene, gentle smile to the crew. It's a pleasure to meet all of you. I hope we get along, Kaya said delightedly as she went up to each and every one of the crew members to shake their hands. It's great to meet all of you. You all look to be very capable. Let's go have some outlandish adventures, like the time me, Kaya, and our senseis fought this big, tanned, red-haired guy and his army in a desert he suddenly summoned out. Or when we helped that one king and his tactician defeat that one demonic dragon with the human face and its undead minions, Usopp proclaimed proudly as he thrusted his right fist into the air victoriously. Zoro raised an eyebrow at Usopp's proclamations. There's no way any of that happened, Zoro expressed disbelievingly. Zoro-san, both of those events actually did happen, Kaya piped up, defending Usopp from being called a liar. She knows what Usopp just said definitely sounds like a lie, but they've never known Wayne. He's capable of doing things people could only dream of doing. You're kidding, Zoro stated incredulously, making a tick mark appear on Usopp's forehead. Hey, you calling her a liar? Usopp yelled angrily at the swordsman as he pulled his slingshot staff out of the frame on his back. What's it to you, Longnose? Zoro yelled back as he took out Ubashiri, ready to face the sniper that's a little bigger than him. Using his unnatural speed, Usopp immediately sprinted away from Zoro to gain some distance as he took out what appeared to be 5 metal golf balls and fired them off with his slingshot staff in quick succession. Zoro, realizing that the projectiles were coming at him too fast for just one blade, took out the other 2 and tried to slice through them. The moment his katanas hit the projectiles, Zoro realized that he is not capable of slicing through them, so he had to resort to deflecting them away. What the hell are those things made of? Zoro questioned as Usopp's projectiles hit the ground. Hard. When the balls hit the ground, they caused a slight tremor, making him lose balance for a quick moment before he strengthened his hold to the ground. Usopp grinned. Compressed high-density tungsten, 4 times stronger than titanium and many times stronger than steel, perfect for incapacitation, Usopp explained as he loaded up his slingshot once more and continued shooting projectiles at Zoro. Zoro increased his speed, dodging each and every one of Usopp's projectiles in order to get closer and strike him. When he got close enough, Zoro slashed towards Usopp, who deflected the attack away from himself with his slingshot staff. Even though I may appear to have more muscle than you, I know for a fact that you have much more strength than I do, which is why I didn't block that attack, Usopp stated, making Zoro grin at his analysis. Truer words have never been spoken, Zoro said as he rushed at Usopp once more, only to be surprised by Usopp suddenly moving faster than his eyes can process. What the hell? How fast is he? Zoro thought as he looked around looking for the long-nosed sniper. He caught a glimpse of a red flash coming from inside the forest, most likely from Usopp's goggles. TCH, coward, Zoro muttered as he entered the forest, using his observation haki to help him find Usopp. With the rest, Suo, why aren't you stopping this? Nejiko asked, surprised that Luffy just looked on at the fight as if it were a daily occurrence. Why should I? They'll find out more about each other this way, Luffy reasoned as Kaya led them back to her mansion. As they continued on towards the road, ignoring the battle going in the forest between Usopp and Zoro, Nami noticed the massive mansion at the end of the street. Whose place is that? They must be stacked, Nami exclaimed as she took a good look at the house. That would be my family's mansion, Ms. Nami, Kaya informed the thief, navigator, making her and her sister stop in their tracks and look at Kaya with a why. Look, what's the matter? She asked, confused by Nejiko and Nami's expression. Why in the hell are you becoming a pirate if you have such a stable, relaxing life here? Nami questioned, making Kaya let out a small chuckle. I have my reasons, Kaya merely said as she thought of the talk she and Usopp had with Arasful sensei. What are your reasons? Nami pressed on. Secret, Kaya responded, causing Nami to pout. When they reached the gates, they all noticed a tall, formally dressed butler with lamb horns coming out of the top of his white, bushy hair. Hello Mary, I'm back with my guests. Pleasant evenings, mistress. I take it these people are the ones who you and Usopp will be joining. The butler, now known as Mary, asked politely, smiling warmingly at each of the crew members. Hello Mary, my name is Luffy. With me are Marguerite, Nami, Nejiko, and Kuina. We another one with us named Zoro, but he's currently sparring with Usopp. Luffy spoke sincerely as they can hear explosions going on in the forest behind them. Those two seem to be going overboard, Mary mused before turning back to Kaya and her crewmates. Why don't you all come inside and make yourselves at home? Dinner is going to start in half an hour and Banchina is cooking today, so expect something delicious. Mary continued on as he opened the gate to allow them to enter. When they entered the house, Nami and Nejiko looked in awe at all the expensive things they have. Hyuna looked curiously at a wall that has a bunch of portraits and photos placed all over said wall. She looked intrigued by these photos, but the one that caught her attention the most is the photo of a young Usopp and Kaya with three men behind the two. Who are they? Hyuna asked Kaya as she pointed at the picture. Kaya turned towards Hyuna and walked up until she was next to her and looked at the picture with nostalgia. Those three ... are Neo's sensei, Wayne sensei, and Arasful sensei. My senseis obviously, Kaya said happily as she thought of all the memories she, Usopp, and them made together. They don't look that tough, a dirty Zoro stated as he suddenly appeared behind the two women. Everyone looked at Usopp and Zoro, each looking like they've seen better days. Kaya merely raised a brow at his statement. Zoro, trust us when we say this, but they are more powerful than you can possibly imagine. The only one that we know of that is of equal power to them would be none other than Luffy himself, Kaya stated emotionlessly as the more disturbing things she and Usopp went through in their training popped up in her mind. Sometimes, I can't help but curse your existence, Wayne sensei, she thought as she pushed those certain memories back. Yeah, Zoro, don't insult our senseis by saying they aren't tough, Usopp exclaimed. Zoro was about to retort back before Mary clapped his hands together. Everyone, get cleaned up. It's about time for dinner, Mary said, making Luffy and Usopp drool in anticipation. All right, chow time. Zoro eagerly walked towards the dining room before being stopped by Kuina. Zoro, you are dirty and you stink. Clean yourself up first. Kuina chastised her fellow partner, causing him to growl and concede to her wishes. TCH, controlling woman, he muttered low enough so she wouldn't hear as he walked up to Mary. Hey butler, where can I go to get myself cleaned up? Zoro questioned the butler. Before the butler could even respond, a smiling Luffy walked up to Zoro. Don't worry about it, Zoro. I got just the thing, Luffy stated in an upbeat tone. What is it? Zoro asked. Luffy placed his palm over Zoro, confusing him. Atomic structure analysis, Luffy uttered out as blue ethereal ripples went all over Zoro, shocking him. Atomic structure analysis, complete. Atomic restoration. Luffy spoke once more as Zoro became engulfed in a blinding blue light. Once the light dimmed down, they all saw Zoro back to normal with no smudges of dirt and no rips in his clothing visible. Luffy did the same thing to Usopp, making him look at himself in surprise. When they walked in the dining room, they found enough food on the table for a feast. They then turned their attention to a long-nosed woman who was wearing a head chef's outfit. I hope you all enjoy yourselves. It's good to meet my son's friends, she said contentedly to the crew as she motioned them to sit down. Thank you for the food, Mom, but why are you here? It's usually Klahador's job to watch our needs here. Usopp asked, curious as to why his mother is doing a butler's job. Klahador is no longer working here, Usopp. Mary suddenly spoke, gaining the crew's attention. Why? Kaya wondered, seeing as Klahador was one of the best butlers here and a good friend to her. Hey, Mary began as he thought of what happened roughly 2 days ago. Flashback 2 days prior. So, Klahador, what were you doing in the mistress room? Mary asked politely as Klahador, known before as Kuro of 1,000 Plans, looked at his fellow butler. I was just making sure the mistress didn't need anything. Klahador merely replied, hiding the fact that was gloating over her sleeping form. I have been planning this for over 3 years. Once I get my crew to attack in 3 days, I will finally be able to live in peace. He thought sinisterly as he kept his poker face on. Is there a reason as to why you called me over in your office? He asked, wondering what the man wanted. Oh yes, Klahador, the reason I called you over here is to commemorate your 3 years of continuous hard work here. Kaya was planning on giving this to you next week for your birthday, but she and I decided to give it to you as an anniversary gift, Mary explained as he gave a blue box wrapped in a golden ribbon to Klahador. Klahador emotionlessly opened it to see some custom-made glasses inside the box. It seems your glasses slip quite frequently, so the mistress had this custom made for you. Mary explained the use of Klahador's new glasses. She really is attentive and considerate. Klahador mused, looking at the glasses before turning his attention back to Mary. Speaking of anniversaries, an event 3 days ahead is certainly going to be an event to be remembered. He turned to look behind him towards the open window and gazed at the moon. It's a crescent moon tonight, isn't it? A night like this makes my chest throb harder and blood boil for excitement, Klahador bloodthirstily stated as he dropped the gift he got and crushed it under his foot. Klahador, what do you think you are doing with the mistress present? Mary questioned angrily, seeing his co-worker treat their kind mistress gift in such a manner. I have accepted the present, but not just that, it's everything in this mansion, Klahador exclaimed in a calm, yet maniacal manner. Where are you getting it with all of this, Klahador? Mary interrogated Klahador with a calm fury casting over him. Kuro merely glanced at Mary as if he were a little, putrid insect. Suddenly, Klahador began to grow much larger, growing black fur all over his body, his muscle mass increasing by a lot. His once human ears now became black cat ears, and he grew out a black tail. His fingernails soon became claws ready to eviscerate the lamb-themed butler to oblivion. Facing Mary was no longer Klahador, the butler, but Kuro of 1,000 Plans, also known by his unofficial moniker, Kuro the Black Panther. There's no more need for me to continue this act. It's been 3 years too long, Kuro exclaimed with a grin, showing his sharp fangs to Mary as he suddenly began moving faster than the normal eye can see. At this point, my dear viewers, is when Mary would try to warn Kaya about what's going on before getting seriously wounded. But you see, in this timeline, it wasn't just Kaya and Usopp that got an upgrade or two from the bounty hunters. Before Kuro's attack could strike Mary, Mary stopped it by latching his haki-infused hands onto Kuro's wrists, tightening his grip to bone-shattering levels. GRRK. Kuro growled in shock and pain. He never expected the lanky-looking butler to be capable of blocking his attack, much less have him feel a great deal of pain. Mary looked on emotionlessly at his former co-worker as he made Kuro's back face the open window. Let's take this outside. We mustn't awake the mistress, Mary coldly spoke as he kicked Kuro out of his office and into the forest with an incredible amount of force. As Kuro continued on his path, occasionally hitting and breaking a tree with the amount of force that he was launched with before finally settling down when he hit a massive stone, he stared out at the ground in wonder as to what he got himself into. When he looked up, he could see Mary walking into his vision. He then noticed the area around him. The vast, flat, grassy area is surrounded by many, many trees, depriving him the vision to see the other side of the forest. He got up, steeling himself in preparation for what might be his hardest battle ever. Klahador ... or is it Kuro? Mary asked, making Kuro widen his eyes at the butler's knowledge before narrowing them in anger. I have seen your bounty in an old newspaper a couple of years ago when the Marines supposedly executed you. I am quite the fool, not seeing it until you showed your true colors. Thankfully, I will be rectifying that mistake, since I'm the one that hired you after all. As my duty as the head butler of the family you are trying to destroy, I will stop you permanently. Don't think that one lucky shot will win you the battle. Kuro snarled out as he got up and got in his fighting stance. However, he soon became slightly unnerved when he heard the butler chuckling, before it turned into full-blown laughter. The laughter went on for a couple more seconds before it suddenly came to a halt. Oh wow, Mr. Wayne is definitely right about that drug. Definitely makes you loosen up a screw or two, Mary said to himself, but Kuro heard it thanks to his enhanced hearing. Mary looked back at Kuro and started talking seriously once more. Now see here, Kuro. I know for a fact that what I did was not just one lucky shot. For you to understand even better as to the difference of power that we have, let me show you the gap between a Zoan and a mythical Zoan. A massive pair of black, feathered wings sprouted out of Mary's back. The little lamb horns on his head soon split into 2 each before suddenly growing to be 3 times the length of his head in a spiral corkscrew formation. Before Kuro could see any more, Mary became engulfed in a massive ball of intense blue flames. When the flames suddenly went out, what he saw caused his danger senses to hit overdrive as he took a good look of the new being was in front of him. The demonic beast-looking creature 6 times the size of Mary had albino fur covering every single part of his body except for his black feathered wings and from the waist below, in which the fur became a dark gray color. A goat head with 4 spiraling horns with a torch in between, a pentagram engraved in the middle of his forehead, and eyes made out of blue flames looked down at Kuro, further increasing Kuro's fear as he averted his sight towards Mary's furry goat legs. You see the difference between us, Kuro. While you ate the cat fruit, panther model, I have eaten the capri fruit, Baphomet model, a gift from the mistress teacher. Now I know you're wondering why I'm bothering to tell you this, but you see, it's not only to show you how outclassed you are, but to show you what happens when someone messes with the mistress or her friends and family. The massive, towering, demonic form of Mary boomed at Kuro, who was now running into the dense forest, in hopes that he would be able to escape the monster after him. Run as much as you like, Kuro, it makes little difference. Mary spoke emotionlessly as he flew into the air, getting a good view of the entire forest, and by extension, Kuro. A massive ball of blue flames half the size of Mary grew before it compressed itself into a ball small enough to fit in Mary's snout. As Mary put the ball of blue flames in his mouth, the blue flames in his eye sockets and torch intensified before Mary shot the ball out towards the direction. Rubicante. Hell's fury, he muttered, taking in the sight of the ball of blue flames explode into a pillar that reached the sky, bringing in a beautiful display from far away as it did its job of turning every single thing in its vicinity into ashes. He descended downwards to the melted ground, looking for the remains of the man who plotted to do something against the mistress. After a minute of searching around, he found Kuro's charred, but still alive body in the outer edge of the explosion radius. Kiyuhuhu. Kuro gave a painful chuckle despite having trouble breathing. What's so funny, Kuro? Mary asked, wondering if he just realized something or if he lost his sanity in his final moments. I might be a dead man, but at least I won't be going down ... by myself, he uttered out, not being able to speak properly as he can feel the muscles in his throat melt down and slowly suffocate him to death. Mary merely watched in confusion as to what he meant by that. Seeing as he can't talk to the dead, Mary created a small ember that soon engulfed the remains of Klahador's body. Mary reverted his body back to its human form as he looked at Kuro's smoldering ashes with melancholic eyes before walking away from them and heading back to the mansion. I knew who you truly were for a year, Kuro. Seeing you interact with the mistress, I thought you were a changed man. Sadly, things just weren't meant to be. Mary thought sorrowfully. Flashback end. Quit his job to look for something. He's very thankful for the gift, Ms. Kaya. Now why don't you all enjoy yourselves to the food before it gets cold? Mary lied smoothly, making everyone except Luffy accept the response. What are you hiding, Mary? Luffy thought seriously before digging into his food. At Marineford. It's been 5 years, he stated grimly. After everything he went through all those years ago, he couldn't help get angry. He had been killed by that rubber bastard. At least he was able to take the majority of his allies and his crew down with him before succumbing to his injuries. Now though, he's somehow back in a different timeline where it seems that the Marines are far better off than usual. He kept all of his improvements despite being in slightly younger body than before when came to this new timeline. He knows that it is this year that the massive flux of the worst pirates in recent history will come and join the fray. He had done everything in his power to improve the might of the Marines, massive reformations, wiser decisions, enforcing his idea of justice, improving both the individual strengths of the Marines as well as a whole, and massive recruitment campaigns all over the Grand Line and the Blues. Thanks to all of this, he was able to increase the numbers of the Marines by an astounding 200%. Not only that, but in this timeline, Heaven's Wrath is a success, albeit one of their weapons left to do his own thing, dropping the group down to 10. Not like it matters though, since each and every one of them are essentially humanized supercharged buster calls. He would have put a bounty on his head, but his crime of leaving has already been pardoned by Sengoku, the sentimental bastard that he is, superior be damned. Somehow, thanks to a certain someone that he thought he would fucking never see again, Zephyr Sensei's family is still alive, and he and his students never got attacked by that damn bastard of a pirate. But quite thankfully, he dispatched before his damn superiors could even give him the invitation to become one of the 7 warlords of the sea. As a result of this, not only are all the Marines in the Grand Line ranked ensign and above stronger than ever before, but they are higher in numbers, with each of them being adept in at least one form of haki and at least half of the Rokushiki techniques. He couldn't help but grin. Thanks to his interference, the Marines are going to be prepared to nip at each of those pirates looking for whatever it is they are looking for. Just you wait, Straw Hat. When I get my hands on you, I will grant you the pleasure to seeing your so-called nakama getting murdered in front of your very eyes. Amik, Usopp and Kaya's training adventures. So, how did your training go with Arasful, Wayne, and Neos? Luffy asked as he looked towards Usopp and Kaya. It was really great, Luffy. It's because of those adventures we went through that I was able to get my bow from a guy named Arjuna. Apparently I impressed him with my aiming skills despite my age at the time, that he gave me his trusted bow. It's really powerful, but not really good for doing sneak attacks since the string glows whenever I notch an arrow onto the bow. Usopp explained. Well, did you two have any bad experiences while training? Nijiko asked, wondering if their teachers were such great people as they described them to be. Usopp and Kaya looked at each other with widened eyes as they remembered some of the horrible things they saw. Flashback 8 years ago. Arg, Wayne, what the fuck are you doing? Arasful exclaimed through a din mushy as he is currently fighting a massive sea abomination that suddenly appeared in a river while at the same time avoiding the hail of blades being launched at him by a guy in the sky wearing golden armor. I'm currently in the process of killing the old fucker made of worms. I have my hands full at the moment. Wayne yelled back as he held the naked body of a purple-haired little girl as he fended off some weird penis-shaped worms from coming towards him. Giororar, what about you, Neos? Arasful questioned. Currently have my hands tied, sir. Neos responded. Doing what? Protecting Usopp and Kaya while shooting water drills at the abomination. Carry on then. Come to me, my holy virgin. The abomination yelled in fury. Shut up, you damn pedophile. Arasful exclaimed in irritation. This place seems lovely, Kaya said excitedly as she was the first to speak. Yeah, everything looks so cool, Usopp stated happily, wanting to see what this place. Nope, we're leaving, Wayne suddenly stated seriously. Why though? Neos questioned, wondering why Wayne suddenly wants to leave this place. The power of bullshit is strong in this world, he explained sagely. Not this shit again. Can we just give this place a try? I already wasted so many years of my life trying to keep everyone that isn't you alive. Arasful explained angrily. Fine ... but don't say I didn't warn you. Wayne warned. Come on, what's the worst that can happen? Usopp asked them all. Not even half a day, Wayne. Not even half a day and you already did so much. Destruction. Arasful yelled out angrily. Well, excuse me for trying to prove that the power of bullshit and hocus-pocus magic wouldn't win them all their victories. And their pipe music is so damn annoying. Wayne retorted back as if her were talking about the weather. You wiped out the entire country's population ... and you currently have both me and Neos crucified and chained in sea stone just for those reasons. Arasful yelled back, finding so much flaw in Wayne's reasoning to country genocide. I will make every single one of your organs explode 100 times over as soon as I'm off of these chains. Neos growled out. All three of them currently ignoring their students hugging each other in fear. Both Usopp and Kaya yelled in terror as they weaved and dodged every single root that was trying to absorb them for food. God damn, this flower sure is persistent. Arasful mused himself as he kept slicing through each and every root sent at him. You fucking got that right. Neos, why aren't you helping? Wayne angrily questioned his teammate as he followed Ara's lead. In response to this, Neos merely aimed his palm at the perpetrator, Baron Amatsuri and the Lily Carnation, and used his water fruit powers to make them implode on themselves. Everyone there, the Perditionists, their students, Briefs, and Papa and his family just looked at the man wide-eyed while he returned the look with confusion. I helped, he stated hesitantly with a shrug. Flashback end. Nothing happened. They responded with a shiver. Come on, tell us. Zoro could finish his sentence when Kaya and Usopp glared at him. Nothing happened, they repeated monotonously before going back to eating quietly. Wow, was all Luffy could say as he gazed at the new and improved Going Merry. After they were all finished eating, Merry had guided the Straw Hats to see the ship in which they'll be staying in for an indefinite amount of time. It seemed that Merry this time had outdone himself. This version of the Going Merry looks majestic in every sense of the word, much bigger than the first one and more stocked up as well. Luffy wondered if his bounty hunter friends had anything to do with this particular improvement. Hey, knowing how different this timeline is compared to my first one, they probably are the ones that helped Merry make the Going Merry into this. Luffy thought offhandedly as he could see the expressions on his crewmates' faces. Every one of his crew members, sans Usopp and Kaya, have varying expressions of awe as they gaze upon their new home. They then looked towards Usopp and Kaya, who looked on at their expressions as if they were expecting it. Hope you like what you see, my dear friends, Kaya said as she jumped onto the deck of the ship, with Usopp following her lead soon after. When the rest got up on the deck, Usopp began showing them around the Going Merry, showing them where certain places are such as the kitchen, sleeping quarters, bathroom, training room, and the anchor room. As this was going on, Merry tapped Luffy's shoulder and pointed towards the forest. Noticing Merry's serious expression, Luffy nodded at him and followed him. Later with Luffy and Merry. So what is it, Merry? Luffy asked as the two were now deep inside the forest. Just keep following me and I'll explain it to you when we get there, Merry stated as he just kept leading Luffy more and more into the forest. They soon reached what appeared to be a burial ground as they can see some sort. Why are we here? Luffy asked, knowing that this place is where the deceased young money pirate crew is. It's been roughly over 9.5 years since he's been here, so might as well pay his respects, he thought to himself as he created 4 bouquets of flowers and laid one for each of the tombs. Here lies Young Money West Drizzy, ex-spy of Lil Wayne, Lil Jon, Kanye West, and Drake, former user of the gold fruit, cocky jokester who can rhyme well. Best hits are Pirates Paradise and Den Den Bling. Like most rappers, he died young and bloody. Here lies Devil Bummer Raheem Omar, Drizzy's hype man, really funny and psychotic guy with hilarious accent. Allahu Akbaring his way through each and every battle. Only guy I regret murdering, though his death was hysterical. Here lies Bouncer Steezy Soldier, Drizzy's songwriter, fast-talking and uppity, though very cocky. Really unpredictable, though physically weak. First one with a bounty to die, could have made less of a mess. Here lies Ruiner Takuchi Itsuki, or what's left of him anyways. Really annoying faggot who does not know when to shut up. Very predictable, but hard to deal with due to shit devil fruit. Took a lot of pleasure in ending his shitty life. Luffy chuckled as he remembered that Wayne himself chiseled out the descriptions on each of the crew members with bounties of the now defunct Young Money Pirates, though he himself wonders why Wayne put certain things there. After finishing paying his respects, he looked at Merry and motioned him to continue on the way. As they continued walking, Luffy noticed that some of the trees were scorched a bit and that there is a lot of soot all over the ground as well as covering some of the trees. Merry soon led Luffy to an area in the forest that is completely blackened by something. What happened here? Luffy asked in wonder as he walked around the scorched earth. Saikuro happened. His ashes are surprisingly still over there, Merry stated solemnly, pointing Luffy to the direction of Kuro's ashes. Seeing as Luffy wants an explanation, Merry continued, 2 days ago, I found him in Mistress Kaya's room, with me none the wiser seeing as I hired him and he went by the name Klahadore at the time. I soon gave him a gift from the mistress, expecting him to accept it with open arms like he always had, but then he revealed his true self. It escalated to the point that it ended up with him turning into charcoal by my power, Merry explained as he looked at his right hand. Luffy narrowed his sights on Merry, wanting more of an explanation to what he is referring to. What do you mean your power? Luffy asked seriously as Merry sighs once more before engulfing himself suddenly in blue flames, startling Luffy as he did not expect this. This is the power I am speaking of, Mr. Luffy, Merry explained as he showed his full Zoan form in all its glory. And I know what you're going to ask me next as well. The answer to your unasked question. I got this devil fruit power from the psychotic orange-haired doctor that taught Kaya, Merry explained before he reverted back to his normal, human form. As to why I brought you here, in his final moments, Kuro stated out something unsettling to me. He said that he wouldn't be going out alone. And it only took me a while later until I realized what he meant. He then looked at Luffy with a serious gaze. Kaya's parents, Edmund and Charlotte, are currently away, doing some business over at an island that is on the other side of the East Blue, with no one that they brought with them capable of protecting them like I can. Kuro may have had someone target them for his own nefarious plan that I have yet to find out. He finished as he looked at Luffy expectantly. Okay, so what do I have to do with any of this? Luffy asked Merry. Help me find them and ensure their safety, Merry pleaded as he went down on his knees. It will take a while, just know that, all right. Now can you get up? I don't like it when my friends bow to me, Luffy stated, making Merry get back up from the ground. Thank you, Luffy, Merry breathed out in relief. With that out of the way, Luffy extended his observation haki as far as he could, searching for Kaya's parents. It only took a couple of seconds before Luffy gave Merry a questioning look. Merry, Luffy asked simply. Yes, Merry responded back. You said that Edmund and Charlotte left for a trip, correct? Luffy questioned, making Merry give him a worried look. Yes, Merry once more responded with the same answer. Then why are they here on the island? Luffy revealed, a little irritated that all of their concern was for nothing, especially considering that the two came with an extra person, once whom Luffy is all too familiar with. They're here, Merry asked in shock, to which Luffy nodded in confirmation and pointed towards the direction they are at, which coincidentally is back at the docks from where they originally were. Merry wasted no time as he transformed into his Zoan human hybrid form and beelined towards the direction Luffy pointed at the docks. Ah, my beautiful, lovely ladies, how the sun pales in comparison to your magnificent radiance. Would you all care to join me for a nice meal? A blond man with a curly eyebrow said in a romantic tone of voice as he hit on the 5 female Straw Hat members, each with different expressions varying from amused to downright disgusted. Behind him, Usopp gripped his bow tightly and Zoro slowly started taking out Shusui, both of them preparing to skewer the man in front of them. More into the background, there were 2 more people who Luffy could swear were named after some piece of meat. Before they can do so, however, their captain came back with Kaya's family's head butler. "Hey guys, what's going on?" Luffy asked innocently as he looked on at the scene unfolding to Sanji duking it out Usopp, who appears to not appreciate said chef attempting to hit on his girlfriend. "Oh, you know ... the usual," Zoro responded as he pointed behind him where the fight is taking place. Meanwhile with Mary, he is fretting over the safety and well-being of Edmund and Charlotte. "Are you two okay? Nothing came to harm you, right?" Mary asked with much worry. Edmund smiled tranquilly to his head butler as he patted his shoulders as a sign that he is indeed all right. "Do not fret, my dear friend. We are fine because of those men over there," Edmund replied as he motioned 2 of the men, who are known as Karn and Patty, to come where he is standing. Hello there. The name's Patty, and my good friend beside me is Karn. And Patty introduced before slowly turning around to see Sanji kick a projectile back to Usopp. He sweat dropped before turning his attention back to Edmund and Mary. "Man over there fighting the guy with the bow is Sanji." "So, what happened?" Mary asked the 2 men. "Well, it all started one beautiful morning," Karn began. "Flashback. Remind us again why we have to accompany you to get supplies for the Barady," Patty complained as he looked on at the horizon. "Well, for starters, after you and Karn essentially ruined the relationship with the last cargo company willing to ship our ingredients to the Barady 2 years ago, we've had to make with what we have and monthly go out from the Barady to the nearest island and get our supplies from there," Sanji explained before continuing. "Furthermore, the 2 of you caused the last fight in the restaurant, and as the rule states, the last people to be in a fight in the restaurant will be the ones to get our supplies. You 2 are responsible for getting the supplies, not me," Sanji finished as he took a drag from the cigarette in his mouth. "Then why are you here?" Karn yelled angrily, making Sanji look at him as if he were just an indignant child. "Obviously it's to make sure that the 2 of you don't screw up anything and to make sure you get the best ingredients you can get," Sanji coolly retorted, much to the anger and frustration of both Karn and Patty. Seeing as Sanji seems to deem the both of them incompetent for the task, they would have attacked Sanji, but they both know that he is the much better fighter compared to the 2. Even if they did have their weapons, he would merely kick the cannonballs out of the way or kick them back at them, like he's done many times before. The 3 soon reached the island, and immediately went towards the market. It took a little longer than it should have due to Sanji getting distracted by the local beauties, and despite both Karn's and Patty's efforts, they couldn't get him back on track. The 2 chefs looked at each other, giving a silent message to one another, before nodding in acknowledgement. They looked at Sanji one last time before turning around, walking away from him and towards the market. After about 2 hours or so rummaging throughout the market, the sounds of gunshots were heard throughout the area, piquing their interests. Kane and Patty went to investigate the sounds. When their search ended, they were greeted by the sight of a massive group of pirates holding cutlasses and flintlocks with a couple dead people here and there. One burly pirate in particular held a dying butler in his hands by the suit. "We will only ask one more time. Where are Edmund and Charlotte?" the pirate questioned angrily as he punched the bloodied butler he is currently gripping by neck in the gut, causing said butler to cough out blood and bile. "I will not say where they are ... for the last time, even if it means ... my death," the butler proclaimed furiously. The 2 chefs at this point had had enough of what they were seeing. Before the pirate holding the dying butler could do anything else, a cannonball hit his head, causing said part to explode upon impact and for the now dead pirate to drop the butler. The entire pirate crew looked at their dead comrade before turning their attention towards the 2 former gangsters turned chefs, one of which is holding a bazooka, who despite the massive number disadvantage, did not seem fazed whatsoever. "What do you say to good old Roughhouse Karn?" Patty asked his longtime friend as he reloaded his bazooka. "It would be a pleasure, Patty," Karn remarked as he brandished a large knife from seemingly nowhere. A wave of grunts soon came at the 2, all of them thinking that with their sheer numbers, they'd be able to overwhelm the 2 chefs. However, as with Murphy's Law, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. "Eat this to your heart's content. Heartburn steak," Patty exclaimed as he shot his bazooka, shooting out a dozen fragment bombs, which either killed or severely injured a majority of the grunts that came at them. As soon as the bombs all blew up, Karn suddenly appeared before the remaining grunts of the first wave. "Enjoy dessert, ya bastards," Karn roared out as weaved through the group with impressive agility and sliced them as if he were a raging twister. Seeing their comrades either dead or injured in such a little amount of time caused the other pirates to cower in fear. However, they too had some tricks up their sleeves. "The Nyaban brothers. They'll beat them for sure," a grunt from the back yelled happily as 2 men, one burly and one skinny, front flipped in midair and landed in front of Karn and Patty. Let's show these two the true strength of the Black Cat Pirates, Sham told his brother confidently. Indeed, brother, let's show these two what happens when you mess with the Black Cat Pirates, Butch-Eye roared out cockily as the two cat-themed pirates then rushed rather sloppily at Patty and Karn, slightly confusing them. Once they got close enough, the Nyaban brothers suddenly unleashed their true speed and snatched Patty's bazooka and Karn's large knife, surprising the two chefs. You damn bastards, give us back our weapons, yelled out Patty as he rushed Sham, who held his bazooka. That's right, they are rightfully ours, roared out Karn as he ran after Butch-Eye, who had his giant knife. Well, if you want them back so badly, Butch-Eye began. Then come and get them, Sham finished as they rushed the two chefs in order to finish them off. Geez, I leave the two of you for a nice chat with the local lovelies and you guys get yourselves into a mess like this. A voice suddenly spoke out. The Nyaban brothers didn't even have a chance to react to the new voice as their heads were kicked into the concrete below them. Lo and behold, enter Sanji. We kept trying to get you to come with us, but no, you just had to think with your dick now, didn't you? The two chefs exclaimed in surprising unison. To ch, whatever, just tend to the butler over there, I'll take care of the rest, Sanji stated as he ran towards the now frightened pirates, who were too afraid to do anything. Party table kick course, Sanji said half-heartedly as he went through each and every single one of the Black Cat Pirates, knocking them out in a matter of seconds. Okay, may you two shitty cooks tell me what happened here, Sanji requested. Before he can get his answer, however, the chefs were interrupted by Girly's scream. They turned towards the direction they heard the sound and saw a man wearing heart-shaped glasses laying on the floor holding his nads in great pain as a rich-looking woman kept kicking him down until he knocked out via too much pain while a man with two butlers looked on with an expression that mixed amusement with worry. The three chefs walked up to the four people, with their footsteps getting their attention. Are the three of you part of their group as well? Questioned Charlotte coldly as she stood defensively in front of her husband, while the two butlers hesitantly stood defensively in front of her. Calm down, lady, we are the ones that took care of most of them. Also, here's you butler, Patty explained as he handed them their bloodied butler. Rover, Edmund lamented solemnly as he held the dying, unconscious man in his arms. He immediately got his two other butlers to go to the nearest clinic or hospital with him, following them shortly after giving a short and curt thank you. What happened to our butler? Charlotte softly asked as tears ran down her cheeks. From what we saw, miss, the pirates were apparently looking for you and your husband, for reasons we don't know, Sanji said as he gave Charlotte a comforting pat on the shoulder. If you'd like, the three of us can temporarily be your bodyguards to ensure this doesn't happen again, Sanji continued on as he gave her a gentle smile. Flashback end. After that, we went to get our supplies, sent all of the pirates to local marines, then we guarded them for the next couple of days, and now here we are. Karn finished the explanation to Mary. Wait, what happened to Rover? Mary asked as he wasn't told what happened to his fellow butler after beatdown he was given. As if the world heard his question, two butlers brought out a wheelchair holding the injured butler, who despite looking worse for wear, is alive and well. Mary immediately went to help his fellow butlers bring back their injured butler to the mansion, leaving Karn, Patty, Edmund, and Charlotte on their own. Meanwhile, Luffy looked on in amusement as he gazed upon the ensuing battle between Usopp and Sanji. Usopp really did improve a whole lot since I've last seen him. I'm actually not surprised he can hold his own against Sanji and Zoro, seeing who trained him, Luffy thought to himself as he decided to intervene between his chef and sniper. Luffy jumped between them the moment their strikes were about to hit each other, blocking them and surprising Sanji and Usopp by his sudden display. Luffy, they both exclaimed in unison before glaring at each other once more. Now guys, let's play nice with each other and calm down. We're nakama after all, Luffy explained, causing Usopp and Sanji to look at each other cautiously before Usopp turned away with a huff. As long as he's not hitting on Kaya, I won't have any problems with him, Usopp said. Hey, I'm just admiring our beautiful maidens. Why would you get vicious with me for hitting on your single friend? Sanji questioned, causing something within Usopp to snap. She's not single, Usopp snapped, causing many of his fellow crewmates to look at him in shock and surprise, except for their captain who chuckled in amusement in the background. What I mean to say is, Usopp weakly tried to say as all of his bravado suddenly left him. Kaya got surrounded by the rest of the females in the group as they wiggled their eyebrows at her suggestively, making Kaya blush in embarrassment. Luffy and Zoro both simultaneously went behind a red-faced Usopp and gave him a pat in the back in acknowledgement. Sanji, on the other hand, jaw dropped at the revelation, wondering how such a delicate, beautiful woman got with him of all people. Despite this thought running through his mind, he realized that if the long-nosed man truly makes her happy, then it is all right. Sanji sighed as he took out a cigarette and lit it, enjoying the taste it gives as he takes a puff. So this is the crew I joined, huh? Sanji thought as he saw everybody heading back towards the mansion without a care in the world. Sanji smiled. This is so worth it, Sanji thought pervertedly as he gazed at his female crew members' asses. Okay, sadly the chapter is over. And if you enjoyed the video, just leave a like and subscribe with post notification, so when the next chapter is ready, you will be notified. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye.